Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another conversation with Jammal. My guest today is Alec Dumaji. There's a lot to unpack there.
The 40 billion we speak of don't go to the Aboriginal people. It goes to mostly white people, just so we get that clear.
You're trying to consolidate all the 300 plus tribes into one voice to cede your sovereignty.
We're the original people of this land. It doesn't come to people like myself and our mob on the land that's in need of it.
Bureaucratic class.
They outlawed language, which they took my tongue, take my identity. They outlawed our culture, our ceremonies.
Holy crap, I didn't know that. There is a crisis of trust in this country. And it breaks my heart because it's like you mother effers, you know, you had an opportunity to do something genuine here.
A lot of people would say the white devil speaks with a forked tongue. I don't want you to go home. I love your coffee. I love your gelato. But I need you to come on board as an ally of us and fight for what is right and what is just.
It just makes me so angry because we don't learn about this in school.
That's why what you're doing is important, my young brother.
These virtue signal things like welcome to country, that doesn't do anything for you guys. God bless you.
Maraganyi, yo!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another conversation with Jammal. This week I am joined by an awesome podcaster, an Aboriginal man, a man that understands the jabby was a huge psyop the last 3 years, as he likes to say. And with this voice proposal coming up, he understands that this particular proposal is going to cede Aboriginal sovereignty, so he opposes the voice. He's a director of Zach's Ceremonies, was a bit of a producer, and he's someone who very much speaks up against the plight of Aboriginal people. On top of that, he's staunchly against the voice, which we're going to get into in this discussion, but he also supports the treaty-making process between the different tribes around Australia. My guest today is Alec Dumaji. Thank you so much for trekking it all the way to Brisbane.
Oh, thank you for having me, my young brother. It's an honour to be here.
There's a lot to unpack there, and my fear about this voice proposal on the October 14th to make a body of about 24 people that will represent all of the 300 plus Aboriginal tribes around Australia. On October 15th, the day after, or when we get this count, my concern is that we're just going to, this voice proposal is going to fail. The polling's indicating it's going to fail in every state, and no one's going to talk about the Aboriginal affairs after that. Albo sort of used this for what he could. He wanted to have the legacy of getting a voice entrenched in the Constitution, but ultimately after this we're all going to forget about it and we're not actually going to get anything tangibly done. Now, before we unpack all that, can you tell me about yourself? Can you tell me about some of your stuff with producing and some of your advocacy for Aboriginal people during the COVID years?
I'll introduce myself first properly, because this is not my country here. This is the home of the Jagera and Turrbal people. So I'm honoured to be here speaking, I guess, my truth on their country. My proper name is Judbagala. Judbagala is the wedge-tailed eagle, the spirit of our lower Gulf region. This name was bestowed upon me from my uncle Marunduyana, and he saw me as a visionary for our people. And he said, because the great Judbagala flies above the storms in times of, great need, and he can, cyclones and the big thunderstorms up our way. He's the only bird can fly that high that he can see our vision and see the future for our people. So I'm honoured to have that name. I'm from the Gamadangi skin group. That's the name of my skin that I was born into. My mother was named Yalagunjimara, and she born me into the Gamadangi skin group. And I'm from the Waini tribe, Gangalita tribe, and Garawa tribe. So I've got bloodline connections to the three different main tribes in the lower Gulf of Carpentaria. And my clan within those tribes is the Wielia and Mumbalia clans, which gives me my duties and obligations amongst my people. And look, I've had a long history in Aboriginal media. When I was 12 years old, I went on a school trip back in 1988 from Dumaji to Townsville for the Pacific Arts Festival, my first trip away, and the first time my mother let me go to school after missionary rule. So we had the Fundamentalist Brethren Church ruled Dumaji with an iron fist for almost 60 years, and they didn't leave Dumaji until the mid-80s, which, when you consider, that's only yesterday. It was in my time, during my time. I was born under the missionary rule in Dumaji. But when they finally left, Mum felt safe she can send me into the school, because as you can tell, I'm probably I'm a half caste or half breed, or a creamy or a yellow fella, as I'm referred to, because there's white blood mixed in there, and I'll get to that story a bit later on about how that happened. But Mum felt safe to let me go to school, and I went off to Townsville, and I fell in love with the media. I went to an Aboriginal radio station they call 4K1G Aboriginal Media, and I saw Joey Gaia singing a song called Uncle Willie. And it opened my eyes up to the power of the media and the power of telling stories and using art as a way to get the truth out. So that's kind of my background. I moved here to Brisbane in the early 2000s, worked for a staunch warrior here called Tiger Bales at 98.9 FM radio station, and eventually moved down to Sydney and worked in Koori Radio from about 2009 right up until I left Sydney in 2013. My last few years there, I was doing some work with NITV. Also became I guess I had to go at acting. I wanted to do some acting. Started in Redfern now with Leah Purcell and a few other TV shows. But in the background, I was also making my own feature documentary about my son, as you mentioned, Zach's ceremonies. That kind of whet my appetite for my creative outlet to use art to speak my truth and tell tell our stories.
What's that about? I haven't seen a trailer for it, but I looked at it a bit online and I was curious what it's about.
It basically proves what we're about to speak about, the true law of this land, right? The true and first law of Australia, as you call it, or this country here, is tribal Aboriginal law, which I practice, I adhere to, and under my tribal law, I wear the Bidida mark. The Bidida mark is the Burri people, the shooting star. And when I wear that mark, it gives me my obligations and my duty amongst my tribal groups. So the film documents over 10 years the growth of my son. While we were living in Sydney, he was going to school there, he was going to Lewisham School for a little bit, and Concord High, but it tracks his journey into Aboriginal tribal manhood and our initiation ceremony, because that's part of our, I guess, coming of age and gives us the law of the country. So to me, the law of this land is unbroken and has never changed for anybody. And our true law overrides the current foreign law that's sitting here, I guess, illegally on our country without no accord, contract or treaty or treaties with me and my people. So I live my life by tribal law. So that film basically proves that this law has never been broken. And even though, the invading system that came here, the foreign system, tried in vain to tear us away from our law, our families, our belief system, it's still hiding. It was still there, and it still actually is practiced by my people up home. And a lot of the other different tribal groups through the Northern Territory, Western Australia, up into the Arnhem Land region, they still carry their tribal law, which is the rules and obligations that we have as proper native people from this country, the originals. We're the original people of this land. So that's, I guess, what the film was about, but it's also what, in the current climate and situation that we've been facing with the COVID lockdowns and the, inhumane mandates that were put enforced on people. My tribal law and my culture, the first law of this land, protected me from that and kept me, I guess, safe from, the evil that we're trying to bring onto our peoples.
Right. Yeah, look, I was going to say, guys, if you want to watch that, if you go to Alec Dumaji's Instagram account, he's got that link in his bio. And if you want to support, that, he's got a GoFundMe there as well, if you really want to understand what's going on there. You won't get much pushback from me on the law stuff. I'm a construction guy. I'm a guy that sort of came to the the media space out of necessity during COVID, and I if I was to substitute someone in this seat, it would be someone like Professor David Flynn. He's like an OG on the Constitution and all of that. He probably represents more the colonialist view, per se, of the law of the land actually being what we have today. So you won't get much pushback from me because I personally don't know about it. But I'm more than happy to air this because I think that this is an unheard part of it. You've got Jacinta Price articulating the more colonialist sort of view of the law of the land, and you've got where there doesn't need to be a treaty or any of this sort of stuff, and then you've got the Albanese view where they're trying to consolidate all the 300 plus tribes into one voice to cede your sovereignty. And so it's funny because we've both landed on the no side on this particular proposal. What's your view of what's going on with what's been happening to date? Because we've had decades of billions of dollars being spent for Aboriginal communities. We've got these sort of self-appointed almost leaders that have come up, including the communist Marsha Langdon. Obviously, we've got people like Linda Burney, we've got Noel Pearson, some of them who have a lot of credibility in the Aboriginal community, some of them maybe less so. But the point is, many of these people, they've been hammering at this rock for decades.
Yep.
$40 billion every year goes to Aboriginal. Just to put that in perspective for my audience, George Soros, his organisation that is destabilising America, $32 billion is how much he's put into it, and it's destabilising America.
Yep.
Yet every year we put $40 billion of taxpayers' money, people like me that want better outcomes for Aboriginals, and they've got nothing to show for it. What's your view of that? What's your view of the Aboriginal royalty, the leadership in Canberra that are representing you? Are they doing a good job? How do we move forward from here, sort of thing?
Well, the short answer is no, they're not doing a good job. Right. But I also want to make this very clear to all your viewers out there, people that follow you. The 40 billion we speak of don't go to the Aboriginal people.
That's right.
It goes to the hangers-oners and the friends of the government.
Most
white people.
Yeah,
it goes to mostly white people, just so we get that clear. It doesn't come to people like myself and our mob on the land that's in need of it.
Bureaucratic class.
The
almost.
evidence is overwhelming that it doesn't make it to the people on the ground, because we still have the highest rates in incarceration rates. We still have the highest rates with suicide rates. We're still living in abject poverty. We're dealing with stuff like rheumatic heart disease, which is close to me because I lost, some of my family members to it recently. And over the last 20 years, we've lost many people to rheumatic heart disease, which is a third world condition. It was eradicated in the white community back in the 1940s. So I want to make it clear that the 40 billion that everyone keeps speaking of doesn't actually make it to Aboriginal people. We don't even see a red cent of that. It goes to all the bureaucrats and all the friends of the government and whatnot, that he needs to do a report or go and do a feasibility study on the way down. It filters out to all their friends and families. Some blackfellas in there might get a taste of it. Some of them are probably friends and friends of the government as well, of the day or whichever. I choose not to badmouth other Aboriginal people in positions of power, some of the people you've mentioned, due to the fact that I see it as detrimental to our advancement as a race and as a people, and also try and form unity amongst everybody. At the core center of everybody's, fight, we do want what's best for our mob. I want what's best for my mob. I just feel that they're compromising their standings for our mob by adhering to our oppressors' wants and needs and rhetoric. And the evidence around the government not ever having our best interests at heart is overwhelming. I mean, that's why we're still here. So in order not to, cause any, unjust and unnecessary angst between other Aboriginal leaders or people in power, I look at them and I look at those people and I listen to them and I give them their platform to say what they need to say. And they have had a voice, like you said, for many years. Some of these fellows have been around for 30 years in politics. Nothing's changed. Why? And I use those people as an example for myself, how not to behave and not to represent my mob. And I certainly won't sit on a platform and badmouth them and tear them down in the public domain. I feel like in our tribal law, if we've got some issues with our mob, we sit in a circle and a campfire and address it and knock it out. And that's the fundamental difference between me and a lot of the mob. I'm not going to sit here on a national platform and badmouth them. What I will say to them is, have a look within yourself and think, about your actions and your behavior over the last few years, and actually act appropriately for your tribal group, your clans and your mob. A lot of people, whether it's Jacinta Price, Warren Mundine, Senator Lydia Thorpe, Senator McCarthy, Molinari McCarthy, Pat Dodson for that matter, they're products of their environment and they're products of their raising. And everyone has a different view and a different way of being raised. Jacinta's one of them. Her mum Bessie, and I can't remember what her father name is, but from what I understand and from what I've heard, he's a pure bureaucrat himself. Apparently he was an advisor to, I think, John Howard and many other prime ministers along the way. So, she's a product of that environment. I'm a product of an environment from Dumaji where I was brutally, my people were brutalized and, oppressed over a long period of time by the fundamentalist Brethren Church that hailed from the deep south of America, that preached brimstone and fire. They outlawed language, which they took my tongue, take my identity. They outlawed our culture, our ceremonies. And they definitely broke our marital systems, marrying wrong-skinned people in the wrong skin, which caused a lot of chaos. Now in Dumaji right now, it's probably one of the most... I'll speak about my home because that's my last name as well. It was named after my grandfather. My old grandfather was the man that found that place back in the 1930s to help the missionaries, the white people, find water. He was a warrior for our people. So I'm a product of that environment. I'm a product of a long string of tribal warriors that spoke our truth and fought for what's right for our mob. And I am not going to sugarcoat the truth about this country. And the truth about this country is there's unfinished business due to the lie of terra nullius. Now, Uncle Eddie Mabo addressed this in the High Court of Australia back in 1992. Now, the ripple effect of that is the fact that we're now working and living with native title. The ripple effect of that High Court ruling also was 2 years later in 1994 to spite us blackfellas that were going to come and steal all this white land again off the people that stole it from us. They decided to make Australia Day on the 26th of January. That happened in 1994, so it's only yesterday. So when we speak about taxpayers' money as well, I might remind all the viewers out there, everybody, those taxpayers' money, right, that all the wealth you've garnered from this land comes from stolen land. This hasn't been rectified, and the unfinished business of it is illegal, and it's criminal behavior. You're dealing with the proceeds of criminal behavior, of crime. You're dealing with this process of crime. It's like if you steal a car, right? And a lot of people say, oh, it wasn't us that done it. It wasn't my generation. You're happy to sit there and say that, not take responsibility for the crimes of your forefathers, but you're all happy to sit there and take the benefits of those crimes, which makes you liable as well. It's like someone stealing a stolen car and you're sitting in the back seat and the cops pull you up and they say, you're in the stolen car, you're all charged with stealing a car. You all know it's stolen, yet you're sitting in the car. You understand what I'm saying to you?
No, I do. It's very complicated once we start going back hundreds of years.
Well, not really. It's not that complicated because we're going back to 1901 when Federation happened, right?
I'm talking in terms of the entanglement. There's a lot of people that have... We've obviously got the various, the First Fleet and the people that came along with that. We've got a lot of immigrants that are here that came here for a better life. And they've come to a certain land... You're saying on a false premise. This isn't actually. We shouldn't be paying taxes to this corporate government. I say it's complicated because it's like, wow, we are so entangled, and we're pretty far down the line.
Why do you think they're trying to validate the Constitution? Why do you think they're trying to sneak this in? They're trying to sneak in. Okay, let's have a look at it. You and I both lived the last 3 years through COVID.
Yeah, that was fun.
What did they tell you about the vaccinations? What did they tell you?
Safe and effective. It'll stop.
Yeah, but within that was the truth. When they sat on national television and spoke, they said this vaccine will not stop you getting COVID, will not stop you spreading COVID, right? It does nothing for you, yeah? It basically wasn't. You remember that?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So the voice has no right to veto, has no legislative power, has no funding, no programs, and it's only an advisory group that the government of the day don't have to listen to anyway. So it reminds me a lot of the toothless tiger that the vaccine was. You understand? Right. Same marketing ploy, same rhetoric, just on a different scale and a different thing. They're needed for what I feel is this government, after, basically brutalizing people over the last 3 years with all this COVID rubbish, needed a distraction, needed to make you all look over here while this is going on.
Yeah.
And they needed to, make something so argumentative and divisive that they trotted out the good old tried and tested blackfellas again. Yeah, they put us up in the front, made us fight each other, made us argue each other. That's why I'm not going to play into their hands by bad-mouthing some of the other
and I respect that,
people because it does nothing. It really does nothing for us. I feel there's a lot of good and a lot of positives in everything people are saying, but you just got to pick and choose which ones they are. I just see it for what it is. It's a trick, and it's very untruthful. It is a lie what they're doing. And I feel, and people might say this is a conspiracy, and I'm a conspiracy theorist, but
hit me. Come on.
Both sides of the government are in on it. Dutton's in on it. Dutton's in on it. Albanese's in on it, right? And they've sat down and they've come up with their plan, what they're going to do. It's all a play. It's like a big Shakespeare play. And the Aboriginal people always lose in the end, right? Regardless whether this voice gets up or not, whether it's a yes or no, I'm still stuffed either way. You understand? Because it has nothing within this process that's going to benefit us.
Yeah.
There's a lot of false promises, false hopes, and a lot of lies being said. If you listen carefully to both sides of it, And if you listen to, I guess, what Albanese has to say, was what Dutton has to say, what Marcia Langton and Noel Pearson and Warren Mundine and Jacinta Price, they're all pretty much giving you out in the front and in the open how incompetent and how, I guess, how what's the right word to use here for the voice? It's just not going to work. Like how broken it is.
Not practical.
It's not practical in any way.
Right.
Like let's talk about tribal law for a minute. Under tribal law, right?
Sorry, when you say law, you mean LORE?
Yes.
Not LAW. Because a lot of people in my audience, and me personally included, don't quite understand it, but I see this word come up a lot.
Let's talk about Aboriginal tribal law. LORE, I guess if you want to call it that. Under that law, different tribes and different groups cannot talk for other people's country. Now, I've mentioned to you a minute ago, there's 3 tribes in Dumaji. Wanyi, Garawa, Gangalida. Those 3 tribes cannot speak for each other's country, and we border each other. I am the president, or the prime minister, you might say, of the Wanyi tribe, of the Wanyi Native Title Aboriginal Corporation. It is inconceivable and insulting for me to go across to the Gangalida countryside and speak for Gangalida country. Even though I've got connection through my mother, I've asserted myself as a Wanyi person, and I don't have I can go hunt and fish on Gangalida country, but I can't speak and make decisions on that country.
You can't be all 3 because you got all 3.
I am all 3.
Yeah, that's.
But when you assert yourself as a certain one, especially when you are initiated under tribal law,
right.
That's the difference,
so
right?
You can only be initiated into one.
Well, you have to follow your father, your gangu, right? Your grandfather's side, your father's father.
Yeah.
That's the whole premise of our law, and we follow this in Zach ceremony.
Yeah.
And once you've been initiated under that law and you've heard those song lines from that teachings, that's your university and that's your doctrine, that's your PhD when you come out of that. So you'll then become a tribal lawman under Wanyi Garawa tribal law. Yeah, and that's the one that I went to high school in, and that's given me my doctrine or my PhD. So therefore, I assert myself as a Wanyi Garawa man with connections to the Gangalida tribe. I don't assert any authority over Gangalida country due to my respect for the tribal initiation law that I went through.
That makes sense, yeah.
So therefore, I can't go down here and speak for this mob country. And that's and guess that's one of the big issues with this voice to parliament.
Yeah, huge.
24 people handpicked by the government of the day.
We don't know. They didn't even tell us how they're selected.
That's even another.
Like they could be white fellas, man. And they're not genetically tested. Like they could be white fellas. I mean, for all we know, right now, the amount of Aboriginal people in this country. I want to go back to the law thing.
Yep.
But it's a lot of. They're saying it's an inflated number. Basically, there's a lot of white fellas that are identifying in that and getting a lot of the those $40 billion in programs. Many of them include grants, scholarships, job opportunities. If you tick, if I tick, I'm Aboriginal, I could probably get away with it. On a job for an assistant development manager, I'm going to get that straight away. But sorry, let's go back to the law thing.
So I just want to address that.
Yeah, sure.
That's come about because of the oppression in this country and the learnt behaviour they've learned from their white oppressors, right? Like a lot of these.
What do you mean by that?
So lateral violence comes from learnt behaviour, right?
Right.
In our tribal law, it was inconceivable that an Aboriginal person would beat their women up, because our women in our tribal law hold such high place. They actually are very powerful in our initiation ceremonies.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is the female elder higher than the male elder? Because I think that's what I've heard.
Oh, it's a yin and yang, brother. It's part of life. Mother Earth, Father Sky, water and fire, yin and yang of life, black and white. Right. It's that they go together, and they're both. We live in a circle. We're all answerable to each other. That's how tribal law works. The first time that any Aboriginal mob that he experienced violence towards women was on the 26th of January 1788, when Governor Arthur Phillips and the Redcoats led out all the convict women onto the beaches there at where the Opera House is, and they let all the convict men out, and they plied them with alcohol 2 days out, and they beat and raped all these women on that day. So it was a mass beating and a mass raping of women in the front of these Gadigal elders that were there practicing their initiation ceremony. Right, they were doing a tooth avulsion ceremony when that all took place. That's why a lot of the Gadigal people were busy in the middle of ceremonies. So that has transpired over the years and become normal behaviour amongst Aboriginal mob because it was learnt behaviour. So
they adopted it, right?
Yeah, they didn't adopt it. They got beaten into it because they were being brutalised as well.
Right.
You know what I mean? So over 200 years of being brutalized and beaten and your head shaved and, you know, you germ warfare with the smallpox and the common cold and all this stuff they brought.
You think that was deliberate, the germ warfare?
Yeah, of course it
was.
was.
Just by accident?
It was. Right. It was absolutely deliberate. In fact, a young soldier who is a very, you know, the class system came with the British as well, you remember, you know. So the class system came. Nobody addresses the class system issue, which hasn't had, you know, it's a big issue for the impact of colonization around the world. If you go to India, which was also colonized by the British, the class system there is very evident. And it's here in Australia as well, the class system. So, you know, there was a young soldier called Watkin Tench, and he wrote a book called 1788, because he had a real, I guess, love of Aboriginal people and the native man down here. He was a wide-eyed young, I think he was in his early 20s. He had a different experience to what Arthur Phillips and the rest of them did. And you know, if you read his book, he'll give you a real look at what was going on with germ warfare. They bought blankets that was plied with smallpox and the common cold, you know, and they did it purposely, handing it out to kids and women. So this germ warfare, it's a fact that it happened. So yeah, of course they did it purposely.
Right. I think a lot of people, you know, in the audience, I probably lean on this side more. We look at it and we're like, look, we can see how it accidentally happened. We can totally see it. I mean, there's stories about, you know, in South America when many of the conquistadors and other countries came, stories about getting to these ghost cities and there being no one there, and then realizing they must have just been wiped out by something we brought over.
Yeah.
You could see how it happened accidentally, but I mean, germ warfare, we didn't really develop that till like World War II.
You reckon?
Look, I have no idea. Look,
See,
this is the thing. There's a few topics like this.
I reckon.
Where
I personally believe it was being practiced for a long period of time, and some of these tactics have been used over a long period of time, and certainly was part of colonizing the world.
Right. It was a brutal time.
Yeah,
like I'd believe it. I would believe it.
It was very
yeah.
brutal. If you read, you know, 1788, and also if you read, you know, the Pamela, the Rainbow Warrior, about, you know, Pamela's 11-year fight, resistance against the British. Some brutal stuff was happening. You know, there were babies being buried up to their necks in Sydney, and the redcoats would, you know, kick their heads off, like stuff like that. Like it was just like inhumane treatment of Aboriginal people, and this went along, and it's still happening. Like it's happening now within the system, to a lesser extent, not as open as I guess seen as a full-on massacre.
You mean incarceration?
Not just incarcerations. You know, one thing that make me laugh is when I see, you know, the Yes campaign or No campaign talking about how this whole referendum is going to divide the country on race.
Yeah.
This country's been divided on race since day dot, since invasion happened.
Yeah.
In fact, right now, while you and I are sitting here, there's racist laws right now being imposed on Aboriginal people in this country that you can get away with. There's laws in my hometown of Dumaji called the AMP laws, or the Alcohol Management Plan laws,
yes.
which is a form of prohibition.
Yeah.
Which states that if an Aboriginal man or woman are caught with a bottle of rum, vodka, full-strength beer, or wine or anything, they get locked up for 18 months in prison. Right. Now, the minute they go in prison, there goes their career. There goes their opportunity of getting the loans from the bank, house loan, everything else.
Travel to America.
Travel to America anywhere. Right? If they end up in prison just for having a full bottle of, you know, a full-strength bottle of beer or rum or vodka, God forbid.
Can we talk about that? Because Jacinta Price last year was saying, don't remove these restrictions, because if you do that, a lot of the tribal elders in their areas, they're asking for this stuff. These bans on, for example, I think what they were doing is they were banning welfare on the welfare cards. They were saying, no, keep the welfare cards, make sure that they can't spend them at, you know, your local alcohol liquor store, because they should be spending that money for its intended purpose, for the kids' food, groceries, you know, the stationery for schoolwork. She said, don't remove them, Albanese. He removed them. And she attributes that to the outbreak in violence in Alice Springs that we saw in earlier this year, where we all saw footage of that. I mean, if the tribal elders there are asking for that sort of stuff, you know, obviously, should that be what we do, where we put restrictions around alcohol, or should we not be doing that?
I think each community and each tribe need to make decisions for themselves.
I totally agree.
And also have a look at the overwhelming evidence of has it done any good or not.
Right.
I'll speak for Dumaji because that's my home.
Sure.
And for the last 20 years, and you're talking about the Northern Territory intervention laws, by the way, because that's in the NT. The intervention laws similar to the AMP laws here in Queensland. So Queensland has the AMP laws, Northern Territory has the Northern Territory Intervention, which was implemented by the Howard government in 2007, which, by the way, he removed the Racial Discrimination Act to impose those laws. And it was all about a land grab, taking a lot of these land rights, freehold title back from people.
Right. Is it to do with minerals?
Minerals,
resources?
Yep. Resource. Now, I grew up in the Northern Territory, and I'll get to that in a minute, because the Waingi-Gadigal Land Trust came under the land rights laws from the 1970s, after Vincent Lengari walked off Wave Hill Station out of the Northern Territory, and the song, From Little Things, Big Things Grow, that's written about Vincent Lengari.
Right.
So land rights is different to native title. They're two different acts within the current Australian Constitution or current Australian law.
Sure.
The restrictions, you tell me anywhere in the world when you told someone that they couldn't have something, that it's worked. Nowhere.
Nowhere, yeah.
The evidence overwhelmingly points towards education around, I guess, drinking in moderation, not desperation, but also facilitating these communities properly to give them the respect and the honor of actually being a human being, man or woman. You cannot impose racist laws on a specific race and nation. So this country's been divided by race from the day dot. Currently, you and I are living under different laws because I'm Aboriginal. Now, you go to Dumaji, you get locked up for 12 months, 12 to 18 months. You can get your car confiscated from you and crushed. You end up with a criminal record. There goes your career. You get taken from your family, so there goes your family unit. Your kids then end up experimenting with other things other than alcohol. They can't have a beer or rum or whatever. So they start sniffing fuel, sniffing sprays, smoking marijuana, doing ice. So it's a system that was set up in order to obstruct us to advancing our race as a people and learning how to live with society and within the current Western society.
Right.
This kind of behavior has been over and over each year from when the missionaries came. So I'll again speak about Dumaji. We had the Fundamentalist Brethren Church turn up there, and they told my people that alcohol and that was wrong, and it was Satan and the devil, and you'll go to hell and brimfire, and you'll get burnt, and you'll have the 666 on your head. But on Sundays, those very same missionaries showed up to the church and took bread and wine, red wine.
Right.
So my mob are confused.
Yeah.
How come this mob are telling me that I can't have alcohol, but same time he's drinking alcohol on his day at Sunday when he worships his God?
Yeah.
It's confusing. And you talked about elders that are imposing these laws, and I'll speak about Dumaji and Mama Benaria. Most of those elders are black Christians who have been indoctrinated through the Bible and told to believe in a white God, to forgive the very people that stole their land, murdered their people, raped their children, and removed their kids as well. Those same people. And they get them to bow and pray to a white Jesus and a white God with blue eyes. Now, I don't know about you, but 2,000 years ago, I don't think much white people were rolling around Jerusalem or over in Egypt.
Pretty sure he had brown eyes and
you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's darker color.
So the propaganda and the I guess misinformation that this society and white society and the invaders impose on my people is very confusing, and is indoctrination, and it brainwashes my mob into not thinking clearly.
Right. So obviously, I'm an unapologetic Christian with this stuff, and I think that an eye for an eye makes the world go blind. So that's the worldview I subscribe to. And I think I've heard you make this the point before. They used Christianity to actually make the Aboriginal people subservient and to forgive them for the colonial slaughter and take over the land. How do you move past that? Because you've got people and we won't go into detail, but you've got some of these Aboriginal activists in Canberra, many of which are in Parliament, calling for a Makarrata Commission, which involves the spearing of, it's capital punishment in Aboriginal law. I mean, what's your view on that, for example?
Well, it's a law that's been, I guess, practiced on this continent for over 80,000 years plus. So it's something that we can relate to, and it's something that we're used to and kind of can take. Governor Arthur Phillips actually was the first white man to spill his blood on this continent when he was speared.
I do, yeah. Was he the one with the missing tooth?
He was the one.
And so, I love that story. I love that story because you know what I love about it? It's like the Aboriginal people, they have this, similar to the Knights of Europe, there's a respect structure. They thought he was Aboriginal, so they because he has a missing tooth.
Well, they thought he was an initiated tribal man from his tribe.
Because you guys remove a tooth, right?
So down in Sydney, the Gadigal people were doing the tooth effulgence ceremony the morning he showed up, and planted the flag. So when he smiled and he was missing his front tooth, they went, hey, this fellow's a ceremony man.
Yeah.
Let's give him the respect to hang in and rest his weary soul.
Yeah.
But of course, he went and claimed Terra Nullius and claimed the flag and all the rest of it, and called it the colony, the new colony of New South Wales. And he was also the first one that paid any consequences for his actions. Right. You asked me what a way forward is. The way forward is this country and its leaders and the people that are benefiting from the wealth of stolen land need to pay the consequences and need to acknowledge what's taken place. That's why currently you have two different flags, because they know they're illegally occupying our land without consent. That's why there's the Aboriginal flag flying at the Sydney Harbour Bridge and Australian flag. They know this. But they're not going to tell you, but they'll use rhetoric and all sorts of rubbish and propaganda to blind you in the truth.
Yeah.
So back to...
So can I just say on Arthur Phillip, we'll get back to that. So on Arthur Phillip, rather than spearing him, because they're so accurate with their spearing, rather than going for the kill shot, they deliberately go for a maiming shot, because he's like, it's one of our own.
Yes. So the reason Arthur Phillips was speared was because he stole Bennelong. Right, and he arrested Bennelong and he put him in prison, and Bennelong jumped out and ran away. He went over to get him over near Manly somewhere, and that's where he said okay, and he understood he had to pay the consequences of what he did. So he apologised to Bennelong, and they speared him, didn't kill him, but they maimed him, and he spilt blood on this continent. Could be a great day to celebrate Australia's independence on that. I think it was might have been the 8th of August. Right. Could be a good day for Australia Day. First time a white man spilled his blood and actually stood up and took, was mature enough to take the responsibility of the atrocities. That's what he did.
Yeah. On Australia Day, I don't really mind, to be honest.
Back to I guess what's the way forward. The way forward is stop denying us the truth. Stop lying. Stop trying to sneak in a recognition of Aboriginal people on your invalid and fake constitution, and actually be upfront and go, you know what, this constitution is not worth the paper it's written on, and your passport is not worth the paper it's written on, until we have Aboriginal people actually recognising that we need a contract, an accord, or treaties with our mob. That validates the illegal constitution. Right. But you have to be truthful enough and own up to it. Now, why they're fear-mongering everybody, what they're fearful of, is that they have to pay for reparations of the last 200 years, or compensation for the stolen land. Right. And when you talk about money and wealth, that's when colour doesn't matter anymore. Because the colour of green, the colour of money is all that matters, and that's what's driving these band-aid fixes.
Yes.
Why do you think that 10 years ago, when the Recognise campaign, remember the big red R?
Yes.
So the Recognise campaign has just been rehashed as the voice to Parliament. 15 years ago, the big red R was all over Qantas, all over the AFL, all over the Rugby League, NRL. It was everywhere. They were flying it high and proud and talking about recognising Aboriginal people in the Constitution. It failed miserably because Aboriginal people like myself that could see through the rubbish and the rhetoric, we could tell it wasn't going to be good for our people. You have to address the unfinished business of Terra Nullius, the lie of Terra Nullius, which was a land of no people, that Uncle Mabo proved in the High Court. Right? In the white man's High Court, he proved that Terra Nullius was a lie and people were here. We existed here. There's many studies and facts that prove we've been here over 80,000 plus years. Once you own up and be mature enough as a country and as leaders to say, yeah, we stuffed up here. Let's fix this and do it right. And we start the healing amongst the different tribal groups first. I want to say this, and I want to say this to all your audience out there. There's no way Aboriginal people can negotiate treaties or accords or a contract with our white brothers and sisters until we actually heal the rift amongst our own mob first. Because at the moment, Aboriginal people are our own worst enemies. The First Nation mob of this country, we're living in so much chaos and hatred and ugliness and lateral violence, stuff that we've learned from our oppressors, that we trip our own self up. We are detrimental to our own advancement. So what we need to do is a coming together and a healing of our different tribal groups within our tribes and then with our neighbours, and then we can find a respectful path forward with our white brothers and sisters. And I'm talking about all the different immigrants that have come here in the last 20, 30 years as well. Not all white fellas have immigrated to this country. And there's a reason for that. The reason why, I guess, darker skinned people or people of colour weren't allowed to immigrate here earlier was because there was a racist law in place called the White Australia Policy. When I mention the White Australia Policy to any white people,
no idea.
They got no idea. It blows my mind. I'm sitting there going, you don't even know your own history.
I don't.
And you wonder why I don't like what you're doing to me. The White Australia Policy was a racist law imposed upon this country that only white people could immigrate to Australia. because they wanted to breed the black fella out, the black people. That was their next. That's what they were doing from 1901 when Federation happened. They decided we can't massacre these people anymore and kill them out in the open. Let's breed them out, because they figured that, see that skin color there? That's the product. I'm a product of that practice. I'm a product of slavery in this country. My mother is a black woman, is a full-blood Aboriginal Wanyigarawa Gangalida woman, and I got a white man father. So that's my truth. So I've lived this. I know what it is. A white man was one of the most famous drovers or cowboys in my region, impregnated my mother. And I was born in the 1970s under, I guess, the ugliness of being ostracized and, I guess, shamed in the community for being a half caste, a creamy, a yellow fella. The good thing that happened to me was my grandparents were very strong in tribal law, and my mother got promised to through tribal law to a very staunch Aboriginal warrior, my stepfather, old Dumaji, old Don George. And I explained this in the film as well, in the exact ceremony. So I was born and raised, around really strong cultural people that respected my law and followed it.
So are you saying your mum was raped?
Because
you're putting it in the slavery basket. I'm just curious, is that
well, that's what happened.
Right.
So,
okay. Right.
So I'm not going to say I'm not going to sit here and tell you that my mother was raped, because I don't know that story, and it's a story that I'm following through a new documentary I'm trying to make called The Drover's Son. Right. You know what a drover is?
Yes.
So a drover is an Australian cowboy or stockman or cattleman that used to drive cattle across the Australian outback, and there was a practice that happened throughout the outback right up until the 1980s called the drover's boy. And what the white drovers used to do was they'd go to Aboriginal camps and they'd get young Aboriginal girls, sometimes 11, 12 years old, and they'd dress them up as boys. And they'd cut their hair and they'd work them and slave them as men during the day. Right. And at night they'd become their sex slaves. Right. So a lot of Aboriginal kids were born under that. Well, that's what happened here.
Right.
And because they use different language for the word slavery, they call people like my mother domestics. You're a domestic, you're going to go to this cattle property, you're going to work there. Now, she worked, but she didn't get paid. Therefore, it's slavery. She was a slave under the Act, under the Aboriginal Act, and weren't allowed to do things or go anywhere unless the mission manager, which in my case in Dumaji was Alan Hockey, or the police gave her the authority to do it. So she was under the Act and pretty much in chains in her own country. She was a refugee within her own country. This is what a lot of people don't want to face and speak about, but it's the truth of this country. Unless you tell the truth out in its entirety and face it and own it and go, we're going to be better than this, we're not going to do this anymore, is the only way you heal and move forward. The more you deny it and the more you lie and the more you try to do band-aid fixes, like The Voice, like recognition, like all this other rubbish you're doing, it doesn't help. It angers people and it makes people arc up and fight against the system, because you're not acknowledging my plight or what I've been through and the reasoning why I can't walk into a bank and get a business loan or get a car loan or have a flourishing, successful career in this country. It's because of that. Now, I'm not using this as an excuse. It's my truth. It's the reality of living in this country. If you can point out to me an Aboriginal man or woman that has been successful and become a millionaire or a billionaire, like an Oprah Winfrey, or a Michael Jordan in this country, only then will you see the equality coming through. Right now, where the imbalance of power is totally, it's inadequate, and it's very evident. The evidence, it's overwhelming in this country.
I think, can I just say that there's a lot of people that are probably listening to this right now. They're mainly conservative Christians.
Yep.
Mostly from the freedom community, 99% in the freedom community, against lockdowns and all that stuff.
Yep.
There is a crisis of trust in this country. That's why, an amateur like me can just turn on the camera, and that people are desperate for transparency and understanding what's going on.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll say to all you conservatives out there, you want to know who the professors and the kings and I guess the most knowledgeable people about mistrust and misinformation. Come talk to us. We're happy to sit and give you an education on it.
And this is the problem I see. First off, the education system's been decimated. Mm-hmm. Like, I was put through 18 years of education in school and university, where a lot of this Aboriginal history was taught, but it wasn't taught in its entirety. Mm-hmm. It wasn't taught in its brutal entirety, but it also wasn't taught, to give us an understanding of how the Constitution came about. For example, and I was shocked to learn this the other day because you posted this to your story. Yeah. The people of South Australia, can you tell us about what the King said to the Australian governor at the time, I do believe, with a signed letter, which the government withheld, saying, "Hey, you've got to respect the Aboriginal people here and allow them to sort of, have their own sort of land rights." He said something along those lines. Yet the Aboriginal people, obviously not understanding the language, didn't know that this letter even existed. And this segment on the ABC, full credit to them for once doing something, reliable and honest. It was really educational because I was like, I didn't know that. I didn't know the king himself, the governors in each state, they're meant to represent the king. He's the sort of, the chief guy, at the time. The idea that he wrote a letter saying you guys have to respect the land rights of the Aboriginal people here. It's like, holy crap, I didn't know that. And this is the problem. People during COVID, people right now, we don't know who to trust. We have no idea because of corporate interests.
Why do you think I don't trust them?
Yeah, exactly, man. And this is the thing. They've got the corporate interests. You've obviously got BP and all those other, resource hungry.
BP is British Petroleum. It's owned by the Queen or the King.
There you go.
It's owned by them.
And back to politicians, and they're all trying to get re-elected again. I mean, but at the same time, we need to understand where we've been. We need to understand how to get out of here, and I do want to get into that about ways forward. But people in my audience, they're like, I don't know I don't know. And you know what ends up happening? And this is the sad part. People put it in the too hard basket.
100%.
And that's where, and this is very much why I wanted to interview you, because in a couple of weeks, no one's going to give a crap. No one's going to give a crap, and the 40 billions are probably going to grow to 45 billion. The voice thing's not going to happen. They're going to move to the next thing, republic. We're going to do a republic sort of thing, and and it breaks my heart because it's like you mother effers. You had an opportunity to do something genuine here, and you used it as the latest political football.
That's what they do. They always trot out the old blackfellow, the old Aboriginal, cause or issue as soon as they need a football to kick around, and they need to distract people. Which what this is? It's a distraction from the last 3 years of illegal mandates and laws and an experimental jabby to our mob.
Yeah.
I want to go back to a couple of things you just said. One is about the original orders from the King. Now, if anybody out there know their history or they want to learn this, go down to Pitt Street in Sydney to the museum there, Sydney Museum, and go and read Arthur Phillips's journal. His personal journal states that there was instructions in there from the King to actually negotiate a deal or a treaty with First Nation people, with the native man from this country. Never happened. Because you got to remember, back then there was no TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or social media to tell the truth.
Mail, yeah.
And you're on the other side of the world, so these mob went, no one's going to care over here. We can write a letter every now and again, tell them we're doing good.
Right.
And they didn't follow through with his orders, which is insulting to their monarch, insulting to their king.
Yeah.
None of them followed through. Yeah. Governor Arthur Phillips, Governor Macquarie, I think Governor Brisbane was another one. They all didn't follow through. And in fact, the resistance, this is another misinformation. They said there wasn't no resistance. There was. Pemulwuy, the Rainbow Warrior, fought the British for 11 years and sent about 4 different governors home. That's how powerful he was. He was an amazing man. When they finally caught him, they did it because they captured his family and his kids.
So who was this as an Aboriginal family?
Pemulwuy, from out your way,
right.
out Parramatta way.
Oh, right.
It was a great bigical warrior, amazing man. Pick up a book called Pemulwuy, the Rainbow Warrior. It'll tell you his story. Oh. And it's told by some of his descendants as well. They killed him and cut his head off and put his head in a jar and took it back to the British Museum, where it still to this day is being kept.
Wow.
I remember back in 2009 we gave a petition in Sydney. It was in Sydney when I was still living down there, and gave a petition to the young Prince Williams of Wales, young Prince Williams.
Yep.
And we told him about this, and he didn't even know about it. He got a shock that this head that belonged to his great warrior was still in a jar over in England. Those sort of things need to be rectified, and the rights need to be, the wrongs need to be righted, and actually we need to face up to the injustice. So a lot of the stories of our mob is getting, swept under the table and hidden, and not being truthful and honest up front. So the original orders from the King was to actually negotiate treaties. Right. So we could build a foundation for the good of all of us. You talk about your education system. The reason the Maoris have the Maori law and customs and tongue and language taught in the schools over there is because of the Waitangi Treaty. Now, it's not perfect, and it doesn't suit all the Maori mob, because I know a lot of Maori brothers and sisters that don't like the Waitangi Treaty. Same way within America with a lot of the Lakota people I work with and go and spend time with. They're not happy with a lot of the treaties they've signed, and a lot of their treaties have been, I guess, broken over the course of many years. But I'll say this, when they signed those treaties about 100 or 200 years ago, a lot of them couldn't read or write either. So the wording is in English. And as you know, a lot of English wording and language has 2 or 3 different meanings, and it's forked tongue. You know, a lot of people would say the white devil speaks with a forked tongue. That's why I guess this current government and in the current climate, they're too scared to actually sit and do treaties with us, because they know that a lot of us are educated in the white man's ways, can speak English, can read English. You know, some of we've got Aboriginal doctors and nurses, we've got Aboriginal lawyers. Noel Pearson is an Aboriginal lawyer that could actually negotiate a fair and just treaty for all of us.
Right.
Now, I want to get this very clear, and I want to say to all the conservatives out there,
Yeah, sure.
I don't want you to go home. I don't want you to pack up your stuff and go back to England or Ireland or Scotland or wherever you come from. I'm happy for you to stay and live in harmony with us. But I need you to come on board as an ally of us and fight for what is right and what is just, which is treaties amongst our mob, so we can validate your passports and make you legal. You are currently illegal. You're an illegal alien living on unceded land without consent. Let's right that wrong. Let's fix it together by working towards treaties. I don't want you to go home. I love your coffee. I love your gelato. I'm also married to a white woman. My wife is British. Her mother was a 10-pound pom that came over here in the 1950s after World War II, because her pop was a medic in World War II, sorry. They came here as part of the 10-pound pom program, right? And her father's Dutch. I mean, she's the whitest woman in Australia. She's given birth to 2 of my beautiful babies that are now Aboriginal as well. They've got connections to this country as natives. I don't want them to go back to England. That's not what this is about. This is not about telling you to piss off back to where you come from. This is about going, hang on a minute. If I turned up in your backyard, set up a house, started growing plants and started growing veggies there and started selling veggies from out of your backyard because the soil was so good, and becoming wealthy, and started a coffee shop or a construction business in your backyard and didn't pay you any rent for 200 years, how would you feel about that? Would you be a little bit angry that I've set up my office in your backyard and have gained a heap of wealth? That's what's going on with us, right? And this notion that we didn't have, I guess, industry here, this notion that the black man, the Aboriginal man, was a savage and didn't know how to create all this, is again a lie. If you read The Dark Emu, what Bruce Pascoe says about Aboriginal industry in this country, we're very we were very experienced in what we knew. And I'll say this as well. In 1788, when Arthur Phillips came here, that's not the first time we saw a white man. White people were coming here way before that. In fact, the Dutch came here in the 1400s.
That's right.
So we had a history of bartering and trading with other tribal groups, white people and other mob. You know, so that's a figment of people's imagination that we didn't know how to actually build industry.
Right.
We just didn't need to, because at the time we were living in the environment and at one with nature. Yes, you know, like this skyscrapers and Brisbane is now great. You know, this is proper name for this place is Mianjin, and the Turrbal and Jagera people. Imagine if they got rent for some of this stuff on like here. Just say a quarter of the rent or 10% of the rent. We wouldn't have to be worried and relying on taxpayers' dollars. The white system was set up to oppress us, to obstruct us, and to keep us subservient and obedient to the white system, to keep feeding us and say, hey, look how great we are, we're helping these black fellas. When in fact, they're criminals that have stolen land and set up industry here without our consent and without a contract written properly for us. Treaties will actually, for once and for all, I guess, address all those issues. Yeah. It really will. Yeah. And I feel that we as a people need to fight for that and do it in a just way. Because this current voice and its current, way that it's being driven, it's not going to be helpful to Aboriginal people. It's a toothless tiger with no powers. All it does is validate the illegal constitution and holds no one accountable for the atrocities and the criminal behavior of your forefathers. That's what it's doing. And it's tricking people into doing the right thing by the Aboriginal mob and fixing no, it's not. It's a bit like when Kevin Rudd said sorry. You remember that? You remember the big sorry that he did in 2008?
Yeah, that's right.
2008.
That's right, yeah.
That speech was so insulting to the stolen generation.
Really?
Of course it was.
Why was that?
Because
The left hail it as this, like, he's Jesus, like, for doing it.
it was a trick again.
Yeah.
Like, so again, I'm speaking about my lived experience and the overwhelming behavior of our white oppressors as to why I don't trust them. They made sure that speech was legally binding and tight, that they would not have to pay any reparations or compensation for the criminal behavior towards the stolen generation. If you look at it and you go and look at how he spoke, they didn't take responsibility for it, but he acknowledged that they did it. So therefore, the stolen generation people could not fight for compensation for the brutality that happened to them. It's the same thing that happened with my cousin Cameron Dumaji, Morini Dumaji, that was killed on Palm Island by Chris Hurley in 2004, that sparked riots in Townsville and around the country about black deaths in custody. That court case, when Chris Hurley was, Senior Sergeant Chris Hurley was charged, right up until he actually went to court, he claimed he fell on the lino beside my cousin Cameron. If you go back and look at it, he fell on the lino beside him. When he finally got into court and the experts said the injuries that my cousin Cameron faced was as that of a car crash, his liver was split in two, his spleen was busted, 4 broken ribs. The only way that could have happened is if Chris Hurley fell on top of him. And you know what Mr. Hurley said once he got in court? Oh, that's right, yeah, I did fall on top of him.
Right.
I forgot, yeah, I must have fallen on top of him, that's where the injuries come from. So I take responsibility for his death.
Makes me sick.
But so that's the trick and the treatment of this society. That's what they do, right? So sorry was a similar thing. I'm going to say sorry on behalf of the Australian people, but you're not going to get anything out of this. It's what's happening right now with this voice push.
Right.
And I feel, and I'm not being cynical here, I'm just going against on my lived experience and what I've seen. Both sides of it, the yes campaign, the no campaign, they're all in it. They're all in it together, and they've already got their plans in place. And I believe they've already, foreplanned what they're going to do next and how they're going to go about it. And it's up to us as people, as human beings, to stand up and fight against it and find a better way forward for our people.
Yeah.
Change doesn't come from government. Change don't come from the state government or the federal government. It comes from the people. So you more about that are listening, if I can appeal to your human, I guess, to your what's the right word to use here?
Goodwill.
Your goodwill, to your conscience. All of us have a conscience, right? We know what's right or wrong. We know if we're doing something wrong, and sometimes we'll keep doing it. But our conscience tells us to pull yourself in and actually do the right thing. Right? As human beings, we're all built like that. So I want to appeal to your conscience about what's right and wrong here. And what's right here is to give us Aboriginal people the respect and the authority to be able to make decisions for our future ourselves. That's one of the other things that are really wrong with this voice, right? They're doing the referendum, and they're letting the entire, 26 million people of Australia vote on our future, on Aboriginal people's future. You got 97% of Australia is going to vote on the future of 3%.
Yeah.
And it's only going to affect the 3% mob, right?
Yeah.
That is wrong.
Right.
What should really happen is there should be healing amongst the Aboriginal groups first, and us Aboriginal groups should vote amongst ourselves whether, firstly, we want to be recognised on the Constitution without talking about treaty. Like, we should be voting on that ourselves, if it even comes to a referendum. They're rushing this through, and they're trying to do a Band-Aid fix to look the other way and look at this over here.
To clean it all up. And this is the thing. And I've got a lot of people in my audience, they're probably like, Joel, why don't you stand up to this guy? Well, guys, on this particular issue, I actually don't know much about the Constitution. I don't know about how it was all brought together. And I actually really want to do another conversation with you, with Professor David Flint, because I think there's a few things there where you guys would have a healthier dialogue, which Australia needs. The mainstream Q&A should be holding this discussion.
Oh, they want to leave me on Q&A.
Actually, no, but this is the thing. They don't want me on Q&A.
They want hand-picked people on there.
Exactly.
But I'm not an expert on the Constitution either, but I am an expert on lived experience as an Aboriginal person in this country, as a First Nation Native man. I actually identify as a Wanyi, Garo, and Gunglita man. Right? Yep. That's what I identify as. My tongue, my own tongue, not the English foreigner's tongue. Wanyi, Garo, Gunglita man. That's who I am. That's who I identify as. And I can only speak on my, experience and what I know is just and right. And what is just and right the world over is that the people, the new people that have gone, the boat people that have gone to those countries, they've negotiated treaties. This is the only country in the Western world that still hasn't got a treaty with the native people, the original man of this land and woman. And that is not right. It needs to be fixed.
I want to get to that in a second, because Peter Dutton has put the idea forward of having regional voices. I do want to ask you, I just want to make this point. When we first had a conversation on the phone, it was quite entertaining the way we got in contact, because I sent you my video on the Maoris, and you said, I don't know, man, I think this guy's pretty much full of crap. And I was laughing because I don't think you realised it was me.
No, actually, I didn't.
You didn't.
But I would have said the same thing.
But exactly, and this is the thing. That's what I respect about you. And when we were talking on the phone, and I don't throw my words around. I called you brother.
Yep.
It's not because I happen to be a part of the local Aboriginal tribe of Parramatta. I'm 100% Lebanese and Syrian, and I'm a first-generation Aussie. My dad came here when he was 4. I call you brother because especially during the COVID years, we're both stumbling towards seeking the truth, finding the answers, because the establishment in this country, whether it's the media, the politicians that are paid to do this job, they're not safeguarding democracy. They're giving us everything through a lens, and we are both people that have our respective audiences, and we're trying to present, hey, look, this is what I found in its rawest form. It's unedited, it's brutally, honest, but here it is. And that's why I respected you when you gave me that honest feedback on the Maori video, because I was like, thank F, a guy that speaks the damn truth. I'm not interested in having, a yes man on the show. I want someone that's going to challenge me and talk on these issues. And that's why I'm so interested in the future. I want to fly you down to Sydney and have this discussion with a guy like Professor David Flint, because there's a lot of points there where I reckon you guys would have a healthy back and forth.
I'd love to.
And this is the point. We need better discussions. The ABC receive over $1 billion in taxpayers' funds every year for shows like Q&A. They're meant to have healthy dialogue between people on these issues, but we're not.
No.
And so now you're left with a pleb like me having these discussions. But can I just articulate something? You mentioned that only Aboriginals should be voting on this particular referendum. And this is why, and I understand why you're saying that. The Aboriginal people should all get together, all the elders.
They should first vote whether or not this is the way forward for them. What they should do is all our different, Original peoples around the country should firstly come together, address some of the infighting issues we have amongst ourselves first, because there's a lot of lateral violence in our communities. And then vote amongst ourselves whether we do want to do a voice to, you know what I mean?
Exactly, because what Albo's done is he said...
He's just jumped the gun.
Well, not just that, he said, we did that. He's a freaking liar. He said, we did that. It's called the Uluru Statement from the Heart, where even the Uluru people themselves said, we didn't sign that.
Uluru Statement is a romanticized fantasy statement that said they spoke to everybody around the country. Nobody from Mawanyagata or Gangla people was there that I know of, and that would agree to a Uluru Statement. Plus, they went and started the Anangu country without even Anangu, without even the Anangu's bloody
not just that,
support or respect.
Exactly, they said, no, we didn't sign this. There was a big thing from the No campaign about that. But on top of that, they actually restricted groups that wanted to weigh in about it, that heard about it. And I'm like, well, you know what? This is bullshit. This is bullshit right here, because there's a lot of good meaning people. They're like, oh, okay, if this is what they want, then I mean, who am I? I'm not Aboriginal. And it gives me the crap. Now, this is the problem we've got with this referendum. Yes, 100% of the Aussies that are eligible to vote, they're voting in this referendum. The reason, and I've got to articulate this because a lot of people in the audience from southwest Sydney, which is where I'm from, a lot of my brothers and sisters, seekers of the truth, like yourself, we went through hell in New South Wales in the areas of concern. They racistly locked down the 12 LGAs in southwest Sydney, also happened to be the same places that voted against same-sex marriage, and because we were the least compliant people. Many people from the Middle East, they came here for a better country because our country was bombed by Australia. A lot of people forget this. Where's our reparations for Syria has been completely ruined. Like America dropped so many bombs, they ran out of bombs under Obama. We called him Obama because he just.
Is that when they got Gaddafi? Then it was Gaddafi Libya or Syria?
No, Gaddafi was Libya.
Because they went after they go after the leaders that are there for the people and remove them, don't they?
They went after Assad because what happened was there was two rival pipelines that were going through, and so two of them they were going through. One was the Qatar-Turkey pipeline, so it was going through Qatar all the way up through Saudi Arabia. up through Syria. They wanted to go through Syria. Assad didn't want it. He said, the sovereignty of the Syrian people, we don't want this.
Yeah.
And thank God Russia, backed Assad up because they were trying to overthrow him. They were saying he was chemically killing his own people, even though, the Obama administration said, no, he's handed in all of his, just the lies. And everyone in my audience, like yourself, they're switched on. They see this crap and they don't trust anyone. Yeah. So the reaon why the people, I call them my people, but they just happen to be people that have, we went through hardship in Sydney through COVID.
Yeah.
We've sort of developed a story. We came to this country. We have a lot of kids. We want to develop a good life and to imbue our values, many Christian values in our people. But this voice proposal, it's taking our taxes, and you might say that it was based off a false premise and stolen land
money anyway.
And so we've sort of
someone got to pay the rent.
But you can see how.
But in saying that, I don't want to throw money towards this rubbish. So you know what I mean?
Well, and this is the thing. Like, there's a lot of people there that look, Aboriginal people, they're going through hardship right now. Why don't you just? Because I think $40 billion it equates to, and I know the amount of Aboriginals is inflated. Like it's probably more like half of what they're saying. It's not 3.3%. It's probably more like 1.5%. It's inflated. But if it is 3.5%, it ends up being like $45,000 every year for every man, woman, and child. Holy crap! That's a full-time job.
Yeah, for a lot of white fellas.
Yeah.
Like let's talk about the class system here. You're talking about your mob, which is Syrian and Lebanese, or the Greeks, the Italians. The British class system is still very much enacted here. If you're a white Aussie, you're on a different class level, and if you're a white corporate Aussie, it gives you the world's your oyster in Australia. If you're a white, liberal Aussie in this country, whether you're convict stocked or whether you came over, as immigrants later with the Irish or the British or the Scottish or whatnot, that you still have you had white privilege. You have a place of power and privilege in this country where every door opens up to you. Then you come down a tier, you'd bring in the Italians, the Lebanese, the Greeks, all on the same tier as well, because they came over here and they apparently contributed to our society by building the houses, bringing good food, industry and business. And a lot of people like yourself have gained wealth in this country due to your practice of supporting each other's business. So when you come into Western Sydney and you open a coffee shop or a kerfuffle, or a kebab shop or whatever, all your mates and families, they all come to that shop and they pay and buy, then they bring others there, and you gain wealth and success from it. And you go, oh my God, what a lucky country I'm in. How come the Aboriginal fellas can't do this? And most of the time you're answering your own question, because what they do is the system has little mechanisms and tactics in it that let a couple of people successful here, and especially other people of not, of colour that come here, and especially over the last 40 years, because you remember that the White Australia policy was only was demolished back in 73.
Right, yeah.
After the Geneva Convention actually stepped in and tapped Australia on the shoulder. Hey, you got to remove that racist law you got there so these Vietnamese can come in. That's when it was removed. That's why the Vietnamese finally started immigrating over here in the 70s and 80s. Yeah. And then you had the Sudanese and the Africans coming in the late 90s. So it's only new to have people of colour here. But the Italians and the Greeks and the Lebanese had a special kind of side door open for them as well, and given them a little. And a lot of the white Aussies went, they're our friends, they're not that black, they're still half white, but we'll still call them wogs and stuff, and still sort of use, racist words towards them and treat them differently in the class system. Now, if you're treated that way and you're still being successful, the thorn in this country's side, in their lie, is native people, the original man, because we are the truth of this country, and they don't like that. So when you immigrate to this country and they indoctrinate you with their, becoming an Aussie, and you go to your Australia Day celebration, you get your Australian citizenship, you want to believe in it so much because you've just come from a country, like you said, that's been bombed and war-torn, and you're seeing, pretty brutal stuff happening out in the open. So therefore, you've come to somewhere safe, you've come to industry, you've come to good food, beaches. Oh my God, this is amazing.
Beaches,
blonde hair, blue eyes. This is the greatest country in the world. So you then form a self of patriotism towards a false God.
Right.
That's what happens, right? And they indoctrinate you with this false sense of patriotism towards a flag and a country and a constitution that actually does the total opposite for its original inhabitants. And when people like myself and others speak out against and say stuff, this fella, he's just lazy. We've been told about him because a lot of the white fellas also tell you, they tell you their experience with the black fellas that always end up in jail, always causing troubles and stealing and doing this and that. So they only give you the ugly, bad stories about us, but they don't tell you the other side of it where they keep those doors shut for us to have business and enterprise and be successful in our own country. And that is the fundamental, I guess, problem with our current climate, is that the wealth of this land is happily shared amongst all the immigrants and the foreigners and the invaders and the settlers, whatever you want to call them. But the black man I shouldn't say black man, the original man and woman of this country is constantly locked out, and they're only given a voice that is controlled by the oppressor, which is what this is, which is what ATSIC was, which is what the minute any power or independence or empowerment or, I guess, governance of our own mob is mentioned, when we talk about, empowerment, when we talk about self-determination, these are real words that Aboriginal people want. We want that. We get constantly turned away and Band-Aid fixes thrown at us. And what happens is the white Aussies, they recruit people like yourselves and others. I'm not saying that you're one of them. They recruit you and go, look how bad these fellas are. Let's put them back in their place. We give them $40 billion a year. What they don't tell you is those $40 billion a year goes to their mates first, before it gets to the people on the ground. Yeah, but if we're gonna rectify the rights of the wrong, we have to have these truthful, open, I guess, dialogue and conversations. And I'd love to speak to this professor, because I'd probably learn something from him as well. I'm a student of life. I regard myself as a student of life. I'm a student of learning good, other things. I find, I'm a little bit worldly than most of my mob that's, still stuck in the Aboriginal communities, because I've gotten out, I've seen the world, I've gone, tasted coffee in Venice. I went to the Venice Biennale. It's terrible coffee. Our coffee's way better.
In case you were wondering, I think a lot of immigrants in Australia, they do have a sense of imposter syndrome. So they feel obligated, like, for example, Labor, they're allowing something like 350,000 people every year to this country, which I disagree with. I think our infrastructure can't handle that many people, but from a construction background. But the idea that, a lot of Indians coming, they're the fastest growing immigrant group in the country. A lot of Middle Easterners, they do traditionally vote Labor because they see Labor as the ones that sort of let them in. Yep. And they don't want to rock the boat. They're like, even if they're late on a Telstra payment for their, like, oh no, hurry up, pay it. We don't want to rock the boat. They might, we don't want to be like, the veiled threat of being deported or something.
Exactly.
There's definitely an imposter syndrome, I've noticed. But I have to admit, when it comes to why many overseas people flourish here, I do think it's very much because of their privilege with regards to their family structure, more than anything. I do want to push back on something though. Are you seriously saying in your community, you yourself, Alec Dumaji, if you went to a bank and you asked for a loan for a specific enterprise that you want to open up, a business that you open up, that you would be subject to a different set of standards to someone like me or a white fella that also have to demonstrate the amount of tax they pay every year to get a loan? Because if that's true, I mean, that's an international story. I'll give you a bunch of mainstream media names from Channel 10, Channel 9. They'll break that story.
It is true.
Right.
It's very much so. It's true. Right. And what the system does is sets up specific, I guess, companies or ways that Aboriginal people can get loans and stuff, and they put their bureaucratic friend in position of power in those places to actually dictate who gets the loans and whatnot. So when you see people in the media, Aboriginal mob with suits on that, you always know, well, that's one of the Aboriginal fellows that got a loan from, whether it's, what the ILSC is?
No.
Okay, so my job over the last 9 years, I've been the president of our Native Title Aboriginal Corporation. Right. Now, Native Title came out of the Mabo decision. You know who Eddie Mabo was? So in 1992, Eddie Mabo finally proved in the High Court of Australia that Terranalis, he overturned the doctrine of Terranalis, that this place was a land of people and not a no people. Out of that came the native title legislation, which they held up in the Senate and the Parliament until John Howard came in as the Prime Minister, and he ripped it apart. He ripped the guts out of it to what it really was. Native title was supposed to be Aboriginal people, taking back ownership of land. When John Howard got a hold of it, he ripped the guts out of it, and it became the watered down legislation that I now work with. So native title gives you acknowledgement of your ownership. We acknowledge that this country is the Jagera and Turrbal people's country. It doesn't give you ownership, so I can't go and ask that fellow there for rent. You understand?
Right.
And under that, you also get the right to negotiate. So if any new businesses pop up on the native title area, you can negotiate a fee with them or deal with them and stuff like that. But if you're a bad negotiator, which most Aboriginal mob unfortunately aren't, because we haven't been given the opportunities in industry and enterprise and the business world, they get screwed at the table.
Right.
So they end up with nothing anyway, except just the acknowledgement. You can go and fish and hunt whenever you want, but then piss off.
Right.
So it doesn't give you actually anything tangible, which in the white man Western world, what's tangible in this country is ownership of land. So I can walk into a bank and I say, I own 10 hectares or 1 million acres. Right. I want to put that up as equity to get me a business loan.
Yeah.
Because of stolen land in this country, most banks only deal with white people that have inheritance from old money from this stolen wealth. Because we don't have ownership of land, it's because we as Aboriginal First Nation people don't have ownership, it gives us an unequal playing field.
Oh, okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Well, that's not quite. I understand what you're saying. I don't think that's quite.
And because there's not a relationship on a long, and also it comes with the stigma and the stereotype of being an Aboriginal person. Let's be real. This place stereotypes people of colour, especially First Nation mob. So when you walk into a bank, of course you're not going to get it. There's no law that says, but they just won't do it because. And on top of that, a lot of the people that go into banks and become politicians and lawyers, they go to private schools. And a lot of their mates they make friends within private schools, become their buddies and their business partners when they move forward. So if I went to, say, Brisbane Grammar or whatever, some of the prestigious schools around the country, and made friends with a lot of these families that have, a long line of money, that were bankers or, lawyers or businessmen, I walk into the banks and they're the head of that bank. Of course, they might give me a loan because they're my friends. Oh, he's a good black for this one, we'll look after him. But on the norm in this country, that doesn't happen.
Hang on, Alec. I've got to push back. I've got to push back, brother. I understand what you mean now.
Yep.
If you have a treaty negotiated with the Queensland government, and I know many governments are doing this after the voice. New South Wales, for example, they've allocated $5 million for treaty-making process in New South Wales. I'm not sure about Queensland, but I think they are going to do that. All the Labor government's going to do it, including Victoria. If the treaty-making process in this state between you and the tribe that you identify with and you have a lineage to and you can prove that, once you get after that, what the process after that, once you can say, yep, this particular land, this many hectares or whatever, this is mine, I've got to disagree. If you go to the bank and they can see you have the title deed for this particular piece of land, I don't think they give a crap that you're Aboriginal. I honestly believe that. If you can say, here's the title deed, I am Alec Dumaji, I'm a 100% Aboriginal dude, even though you described yourself as a creamy before, a derogatory term. It feels weird saying it, because of in the movie Australia.
Yeah. Well, I'm Nulla from Australia. I'm that kid.
What?
Well, I'm not.
You're basically. I'm going to say. You're sitting like what?
No. I'm basically that's my story.
Yeah, same story. The bank would give you the loan. Seriously, they would give you the loan because they don't give a crap. It's all they care about is green. I mean it, bro. Absolutely. No, seriously. If you couldn't do that, I'm telling you, the amount of billions of dollars, millions of dollars that would be thrown in lawsuits at that company, mate. You forget about the vaccinated and them shutting down. Just on that point, the entire media apparatus would get behind you.
You think?
100%.
You think they would?
Mate, I would put the house on it,
cool.
Alec. I'm telling you.
Where's your house again?
It's in Sydney. Okay.
I don't know. Do you own it?
I'm 26, man. I'm 26. I'm not going to own a house. But seriously, post a treaty making process. If you can say, here's the title deed from the Queensland government. I own this many hectares in my local area. That is collateral. That is an ability for them to say, yeah, of course we'll give you a $50,000 loan because if it falls to shit, we've got part ownership of this now that you've given us. 100%.
Okay, so do you know the difference between land rights and native title?
Tell me.
Okay.
Tell me. Yeah.
So land rights came out of the 1960s when Vincent Langari walked off Wayfield Station and led the Gurindji tribe in protest towards the Wayfield station that was paying them in tea leaf and sugar instead of money like a white station, like the white workers. It was owned by Lord Vestey I think it was a British guy over in Britain, Lord Vestey. He protested from about 1963 right up until 1973 when Gulf Whitlam made him a promise that if I become Prime Minister of this country, I will give you land rights and I will give Aboriginal people land rights. he kept his word to an extent, and this is where there's lies and there's tricks and they're speaking forked tongue. Right. In 75, they created what is known as the Land Rights Act. It was ownership of land, freehold title, to give us equity, to give us that bargaining chip to go to banks, right?
Yeah.
They did that in the 70s. And there's a famous picture of Golf Whitlam pouring red dirt into old man Vincent's hand, right? And he's holding the deeds to his country, the Gurindji mob. Mm-hmm. Here's what they didn't tell everybody. He only gave smaller portions of land to only Aboriginal people in the Northern Territory and nowhere else. So people like this man here, one of my heroes, right? That man there, Gary Foley, who started the Black Panthers here in Australia and also was one of the founding members of the Aboriginal 10 Embassy. This is a photo from the Aboriginal 10 Embassy down in Canberra, right? People like him that negotiated this land rights with people like Golf Whitlam and that. He's from Gumbaynggirr mob from down here in Nambucca Heads. They didn't get no land rights because Golf Whitlam lied to them, tricked them into only giving land rights to people like the Gurindji mob in the Northern Territory. It just so happened that my father, my stepfather, or Dumaji, or Don George, and our family heard about this and walked off Dumaji Mission, crossed the Northern Territory border to my home place, which is Najibara. And we fought for land rights out there because of Vincent's fight. And they right. And we got land rights, right? The Wainyagawa Land Trust is where I grew up. It's a freehold title, millions of hectares, untouched, pristine. Miners want to come there and mine uranium for bombs and stuff, right? Rio Tinto and that. We don't want to let them near it.
Right.
Here's what they also did, what they won't tell you. They then formed what is known as land councils. Now,
yes.
Wait for this. They formed these land councils so that can then govern those freehold titles and dictate what you can and can't do on there. I cannot run a tourism business on that land trust. I cannot start a cattle business on that. You want to know why? Because the land council has a, and this is true. You go and research this. Yeah. The land council has a little law and clause in there called Section 19. Yeah. So under Section 19 of the Act of the Land Rights Act, you get to pay half your money to these mob, and you have to go through them. And most of them are run by white CEOs and white people. Yeah. They got Aboriginal board members and Aboriginal chairmen, but they're still pushed and dictated to by white bureaucrats, and they still get funded by federal government. And guess who one of their main big funding body is? Rio Tinto, BHP, all the big mining companies fund these land councils, and they have to stay obedient and subservient to them. So when someone like myself that stand up and speak and say we want to turn this land into a flower,
100%.
They put laws and red tape and obstruct you, brother. Yeah. I grew up under the Land Rights Act. Okay, that's land rights.
Right.
Gave you ownership, gave you freehold title, but no chance of enterprise, no chance of industry.
Right. See, that's not what I'm talking about.
Stifling you, right?
Yeah.
Obstructing you.
Yeah.
Right? All of a sudden, people were going, Aboriginal people getting land. The land rights movement was similar to the civil rights movement over in America, right, in the States.
Caveats, right.
It was kind of similar to that, about land rights, about ownership of land, because most of the people like this man here, Gary Foley, realized that land is wealth and we should own our land because it's our land. It was stolen from us. We should have our land to be able to build enterprise. But they still obstruct you with their land councils. Right. Central Land Council, Northern Land Council, that's what they were doing.
Jacinta Price has talked about that and said, this is bullcrap.
And that's one thing that I do agree on Jacinta Price. Like, one thing that I notice with people like Jacinta Price, she says a lot of stuff and people always go to the negative stuff. Like, I agree with her on a lot of things that she says that never gets, I guess, amplified or highlighted in her discussions. Sure. You know, this stuff of, sexual abuse amongst our children. Yeah. There is an element of that going on and needs to be addressed. It's not probably as big as everywhere else, but it does happen. And young girls getting sexually abused by older men with drugs and alcohol. And again, that's come about from the symptoms of oppression with, laws like the intervention, laws like basic cards, laws like, the alcohol management plan. Yep. Back to the difference between land rights and native title. Native title then came out of the Mabo decision in 92. As I said earlier, Mr. John Howard ripped the guts out of it, gave us the rubbish piece of legislation currently working with. This, so you understand, is the current voice for Aboriginal people in the current legislation of federal parliament. It's in there. It's there for you to utilise it. Yeah. I am, right now, the chairman of the Wanyi tribe. I'm the president of the Wanyi Native Title Aboriginal Corporation, and I have been for the last 9 years. In my capacity as the chairman, the native title, my dad was one of the claimants of it. It ran from 1998. You have to go through the native title courts. On minimum, you spend 10 years in the courts to prove. You have to prove in the white man court that you've got connection to this land, that you've got historical, cultural, ceremonial connection to a certain land. My dad ran a campaign from 98 to 2009 before it finally went to the native title courts and got a native title determination, it's called. After that, you then have to set up a governing body. They're called PBCs, Prescribed Body Corporate, which is like a government to run that native title and to look for opportunities in economic development, dealing with cattle pastoralists. Doesn't give you ownership, it gives you the right to negotiate and the acknowledgement of this is Wanya country. So right now, and for the last 9 years, my dad died in 2007, so he didn't get to see the fruits of his labor. He didn't even get to see the determination of the native title, the Wanya native title in 2009. But he left a legacy for us to take on. So what I've been doing over the last 9 years is negotiating really good, powerful deals for my people, using the native title legislation, using my tribal law and my learnt knowledge from my old people in this white bureaucratic world, and breaking down the doors of resistance and the doors of, I guess, colonialism and civilization, like everything, all the key words you want to say. But I've been doing it in a way that's been different than it's been done before. And I got to say, it's working for me and my mob, because I'm having meetings with my people. I'm the voice of my mob. I'm specifically dealing with the Wanya tribe, what's best for the Wanya group on Wanya land. A couple of months back, and you can Google this and check it out, on the 23rd of June, after a 30-year battle, my mob and what I've been fighting for was the national park up on our country, right?
Yeah, I was looking at that, and I was watching a video of you. Yeah, absolutely, I saw that.
So it took our people. You got to remember, in order for someone to prove they got native title, they have to go to the white courts. They have to have white lawyers. They have to have white anthropologists and archaeologists. They have to have. And I always say this to people: a black man's business is a white man's industry. So they make millions of dollars from the Native Title Act and the Native Title legislation.
Yeah.
I'm like a train station, like Central Station. The money comes in, and then you got to pay the lawyer, you got to pay this, you got to pay that. And I just want to go past and go, whoa, hang on a minute. My mob dying of rheumatic heart disease over here. How do I fix that? Oh, we've got a funeral to pay for. How do I? You understand? So it's a system set up and hell bent on obstructing us and keeping us subservient, obedient to getting more handouts. I don't want a handout. I want a hand up. I want to be financially independent from the powers that be, and I want to have, empowerment amongst my mob. We want industry. We want all that. But all these gates and blockages and grids and rivers they put in place to stop us, it's really hard to continually keep jumping over them. Back to the truth of why I feel we need to find a better way instead of this voice and the current referendum is coming up. I feel everything I've fought for will be unraveled and will actually go away, because we fought hard against the Queensland government to get the park handed back to us. We didn't get it handed back to us, we took it back. At the same time, I fought for funding, right, through the Treasury of Queensland, through the state government, to continue to operate and run the park as a business and as a tourism hub for our mob. We want to build an arts and cultural centre. We want to use our knowledge of dance and ceremony and culture to empower our people. We want to use what we know, right? Yeah. What we want to use, and I want to turn my people into, I guess, proud, industry businessmen and women, but utilizing what we've been taught over thousands of years: how to make boomerangs, how to make didgeridoos, dancing, singing, culture, festival, including ecotourism, including. We've created a ranger program for our men and women to become rangers to do, caring for country instead of destroying country. All the stuff that we want to do is built in there if you get through all the bureaucratic red tape and rubbish to get to the end. It took me a long time to get there, with a lot of stones being thrown at me by my own people, by the way. Yeah. You understand? Because a lot of my mob also will live in lateral violence, and also when you see one mob getting more than the other, like, oh, how come I'm not getting it? And, it's a strategy around how you have to negotiate these things. So land rights is different from native title in the fact that native title only gives you two things. Acknowledgement. We acknowledge that this is your land, now go away. And you get the right to negotiate. If you're a bad negotiator, you get nothing. I've been lucky enough that I've had a bit of worldly experience, and I've seen how the world acts, and I've seen how people behave. And I utilize my tribal knowledge and my ceremony. This is one of the difference between me and a lot of, I guess, the Aboriginal leaders you see on television. I'm an initiated lawman, ceremony man that's been through my tribal initiation. I adhere and I respect my mob, and I speak through tribal law. And I always come back to tribal law and ceremony when I'm in negotiating with people like the Crown, with like the state government, and I remind them that they're sitting on stolen land, and I do it in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable, but also makes them know that it's the truth, that your law don't have no jurisdiction and authority here until we address this unfinished business of a treaty, accord, contract. Because I've been smart enough to utilize all that and utilize my tribal law, I've been able to bring about a great change for my mob, which now the future looks bright for us. And I've used my voice and our tribal council's voice and our native title council voice and the elders' voices. Now, if I've got to sit around and wait for someone down in Canberra from this 24 advisory committee to speak for me, you think they're gonna? No. You think they're gonna give the right voice? I don't think so. Because I'm also, I guess, concerned about it's taking away my voice from me and my people on the ground as well. After we've worked so hard to achieve some great things under great pressure and opposition. So that's one of the big things that I got a problem with. So did I kind of make sense there with the land rights as opposed to native title?
Yeah, we're talking about different things. So when I say you have the title deed, I mean the level of rights you have to do with it. You get to say what is done on that land. So when I say that you have the title deed, it means you're able to go to the bank and actually say, hey, this is collateral. What you're describing isn't collateral. What they're giving you and the way they have these these bureaucrats telling you what you can and can't do, that's bullcrap. That's why I said that's bullcrap, by the way. And that's why I say if you have that title deed and that ability to say, yeah, I can do what I want on this land, basically, of course you can go to the banks and tell. There will not be a restriction there, because if there is, I'm telling you right now, piece of cake. You go to the media, you say, and the banks, they don't want this. They don't want this. It'll look the worst for them. They are, pussy whipped when it comes to, any ethnic person, any Aboriginal person saying I can't get, a loan for this or that. Whereas, there's a double standard. This white fella, he's got a similarly sized collateral and he can. That difference doesn't exist in this country, because if it did, the lawsuits that would just smash that bank. So I have to disagree with you on that. But I understand what you mean when you're saying they're holding us down because we kept getting stuck with all these bureaucrats that keep telling us what we can and can't do. But I want to talk to solutions now.
Can I say one thing before we move on to that? So under the native title legislation, right, the Native Title Act, because they realised that the government, that is, the federal government, realised that native title didn't give you ownership, didn't give you land, they created a second body called the ILC, the Indigenous Land Corporation. And they fund it to the tune of billions of dollars each year, and they put bureaucrats, white fellas, in there to run this thing. A couple of black fellas here and there, but mostly all run by their mates and whatnot. It changed to become the ILSC. It's now called the Land and Sea Corporation. Their sole purpose, right, funded by the federal government. They give them millions of dollars. Their sole purpose is to help native title corporations, such as the Wanyi Native Title Aboriginal Corporation, funds to buy land. That's their purpose, to help us buy business and land that's on our native title. But you have to go through a whole process with these fellas. And most of the time, you get turned away. And it's only now and then that you might get one. And in my 9 years being on the Wanyi prescribed body corporate, we've never got any funds out of these fellas. We actually, back in 2000, tried to get a business loan to buy a tourism spot up on country beside where the national park is. And it took us 3 years to get anywhere, like jumping through hoops, doing evaluation, all the rest of it. And they finally agreed to 5.5 mil to buy this business. But by that time, it had already been sold to somebody else. So we just went, what's the point? You understand? So there are mechanisms that are within the government, state and federal, that obstruct us to the point where they frustrate us into giving in and giving up. And I understand what you're saying about land ownership, right? Most of the land in this country that was stolen has now been handed down through generations through inheritance and whatnot, and most of it's owned by white fellas. You understand? So most black fellas, Aboriginal people, can't go to a bank to even buy that land that was stolen from them in the first place, to even get to that point of having equity or having that. So we're not even getting through the door in the first place for the first thing. And even, when soldiers came back from war, they were given land. They were given land to give them something to build their foundation on, to start with the banks and whatnot. Aboriginal soldiers weren't. They got this think that Aboriginal soldiers came back from the war and it was great. They were treated better over in the war fighting for this country than when they came home. They weren't even allowed into the RSL clubs. They weren't given free land. They were sent back onto the missions. Now, the missions were little pockets of places on the outskirts of town because they weren't allowed into town. You know, here in Brisbane, and every city in this country has a street called Boundary Street?
No, I didn't know that. Why is that?
Because that's the street and the boundary that blacks weren't allowed inside of after 5 p.m. If you found inside, you got locked up or probably killed or whipped.
Boundary Street.
Boundary Street law.
Wow.
Google the Boundary
That's
Street laws.
an amazing history. Wow.
That's why a lot of Aboriginal people lived on the outskirts of town in little missions, right? They call them the mish. And that's why, because of, I guess, 200 years have been treated in that sense, being the outsider and the outcasts, they come to the realization, it's ingrained in their head that they're not welcome in here, inside Boundary Street. Now, when you think about that for a minute, it's like being locked out of your own country and not enjoying the fruits that everyone else is picking.
It's archaic. That's division. Anyway. I wanted to go to your solutions moving forward.
Solutions.
Because a lot of people are looking at this and they're like, look, this thing's going to fail.
Yeah.
How do we move forward? And one of the solutions Peter Dutton has put forward, which they haven't specifically said how it's going to look, but it sounds like what you're already doing. It's where you go to each mob and you have, I think he described it as regional voices. I disagree with regional voices if it starts amalgamating. Like you said you couldn't talk for the other three tribes that you're a part of.
Yep.
I think if they start amalgamating, saying, oh yeah, this is like, this regional voice will represent these 10 different tribes. I don't think they can do that. But I think going to each of the tribes specifically and doing treaties with them is probably the way to go. Do you sort of agree with that sort of way forward, or?
Yeah, look, I think...
and I'm not a defender of Peter Dutton, by the way.
Look, I feel that it's kind of happening at the moment, anyway.
Yeah.
Like, one of the other key things in the native title legislation is you get to actually negotiate treaties. So if you get a council, like, for instance, I deal a lot with the Berkshire Council, sometimes the Cloncurry Shire Council, you can negotiate what is called ILUAs. And ILUA is an Indigenous Land Use Agreement. It's a form of treaty. So that's what I've been negotiating over the last few years. And I've just negotiated an ILUA just recently on the 23rd of June with the state government of Queensland. So it was a form of treaty to say that we will operate and run the Lawn Hill National Park, now known as Jammal National Park, together. And we'll have a joint management of it for the next 5 years and hopefully rolled into then sole management. And it'll be funded through the state to implement, economic development, implement, freedom, independence, all the key words that make you good. So there is currently treaties being negotiated with different tribal groups. If I was the federal government, right, if this is my way forward, I would firstly go to all the different native title Aboriginal corporations that were democratically elected by their tribe to represent them on those different, they're called PBC boards, prescribed body corporates. They're already there. The mechanism's already in place. It was part of the native title legislation. So you've already got a representative governing body for those native titles to go and sit and talk with. I would find a way to speak to them first and get suggestions and advice on what the way forward. But I also feel that eventually you have to sit and do treaties. It has to be treaties and contracts with each different tribal groups, whether it's regional ones, whether it's, and I think some of the different tribes I think some of the states are doing it. Queensland is already on their way. They're calling it the Tracks to Treaty. Right. And I think they're trying to do a good job in finding that. I know Victoria is doing similar work down there, where they're talking about treaties with the First Nations mob down there. Right. And again, what I want is for our people to become economically independent and financially independent from the powers that be, to become businessmen, business owners, to be able to look after our own backyard and to actually find a way forward. There's no way forward if there's no financial gain for us. Unfortunately, in this new world, we have to take on, the Western way in Western society. We have to find a way to adapt that into our old ways. And money talks in this world, and that's what's holding us up at the moment. There's too much money to be made within the Aboriginal industry by our oppressors to let go of that purse strings. We need to rectify that wrong. And we need proper, solutions that are practical on the ground, We need to find ways that we're not constantly in the defensive mode and fighting for something, because constantly for the last 2 years, Aboriginal people, they only know one way, and that's the fight, that's the protest, that's the scream, that's the yell, that's to, go up against any authority figure, because we're at that point where we're just reacting. I want to get to a point where we're not reacting anymore, and we're not constantly defensive, being defensive. I said this to someone recently. I said, imagine this. As an Aboriginal man, as a Wanyigarawan Gangulida, First Nation, native, original man from this country, I wake up every day on a battlefield, storming the beaches of Gallipoli, running into machine guns and hand grenades and bombs and bayonets and tanks and airplanes dropping, and I'm trying to find a way through. So when I wake up, I'm constantly walking to restaurants and clubs and pubs and society that is constantly throwing stuff at me and constantly expecting me to fix things and constantly want something from me. I'm like, and even when I go to sleep at night, I sleep with one eye open to find out that someone's not going to strangle me in my sleep, because the police system is hell bent on obstructing me and killing me. There's black deaths in custody through the roof in this country. If we're going to speak about equality, when am I going to see a white family on television going, oh no, it's another white death in custody, they took young Johnny and they strangled him in the courtyard today? That is an issue, and it's part of our norm now that I wake up constantly. It's traumatizing, and I'm constantly dodging and weaving and trying to just survive that day. I don't want to just survive anymore. I want to wake up and be safe in my environment. I want to be safe in my own backyard. You talked earlier about running away from a war-torn country, right? And bombs and guns. I live in a war-torn country. It's just stealth, and it's underlying, and every day reminds me that I'm not welcome. My hospitals up in Dumaji are surrounded by bars, caging me out to get in. Police stations are caging me in to stay inside. I'm constantly reminded psychologically that I'm not welcome in my own backyard.
Right.
So I am at war every day to even survive and live. I want to get to a point where I'm not constantly defending and I'm not constantly dodging bullets and hand grenades and tanks. I want to get to a stage where I can actually sit peacefully and feel safe in my own home, that the cops aren't going to look at me funny, that the security guards at the shop's not going to follow me around when I'm trying to buy something for my kids, that when I go out to a club or a pub, the big Maori, Tongan, Samoans, my brothers that are dark like me, are not going to beat me to death because of the white manager doesn't like Aboriginals coming to his clubs. It happens, brother. It is unfortunately the truth of this country. When people come here, they are indoctrinated and fed lies about us and made us feel unwelcome. So when you're looking for a way forward, we need to deal with these symptoms and this sickness that has actually eroded us as human beings, and to find a way forward properly and respectfully. I want to feel safe in my own backyard. I want to feel safe in the society to walk and breathe and to live and to succeed, right? To succeed and to flourish, to become the butterfly, to become the flower. It is hard to even see past that at the moment with all the chaos that's going on and all the distraction, the ugliness. COVID kind of brought white and black together for once.
Yeah.
Because and I'll say this to all the conservatives out there that's watching. It was for the first time you, my young brother, was walking around in your backyard with a chain around your neck, and you weren't allowed to go to shops. And I said this during COVID, and I'll say it again. The difference with what happened now is that you got to take the chains off and walk back into society free again and continue what you're doing and continue saying what you're saying and continue flourishing and succeeding. We're still left back in there with the chains around our neck, or the chains of oppression that are still weighing us down, holding us back. And unfortunately, unless we find more allies like yourself and like all you white brothers and sisters out there that felt the sting of what COVID had, that was just a little taste of what we've been under for like 200 years and constantly still under. Just because it's not visible on me doesn't mean that I'm not being choked constantly in the society and held back and obstructed. That's one thing that I found positive about a lot of the freedom movement people. They had a different reasoning why. They still were very patriotic towards their flag and their Aussie way of life and their Aussie culture. And they forgot to see their brother beside them that had deep meaning and deep belonging to this country. I actually belong here over 80,000 years. There's a difference with being born here or from here, I'm an Aussie, to belonging. Here's the difference. This is my version of what's the difference between belonging and being raised here, born here, or being an Aussie here. My ancestors have lived here for over 80,000 years plus. And when our old people have died here in this country, they became the sustenance and the fruit, and they became I guess, the fertilizer for the trees and the water and the rocks. The animals ate our flesh. The bones became, I guess, fossilized in this country. So when you walk around and you're breathing in the oxygen that tree gives you, when it turns that carbon dioxide into oxygen, you're breathing in the breath of life from my people, my ancestors. That's how long we've been here, and that's what belonging means. Belonging means my body and land are one. That's the deep connection that we have. And it's not to say you're not welcome here, it's to say for you to recognize and understand that's why we're so passionate about who we are. Because every day I go outside and I breathe in and I'm thinking about my grandmother, I'm thinking about my great-great-grandparents, I'm thinking about my mother, and I'm thinking about all these elders and the songs that I still sing and the markings that I still wear that's been passed down continuously over 80,000 plus years. And it's not to say that you're not welcome here, it's to say that we are here, we are the face of the frontier and the first peoples of this land. So we don't want you to go home. We want you to be a part of that belonging. We want you to come inside and actually find a way forward with us. And the only right way forward is to sit and be honest and open and truthful and start talking about treaties. We've got to fix up the hurt and the chaos and I guess the mess amongst First Nation people first, because there's a lot of, I guess, stone throwing at each other. And sometimes we're our own worst enemies. In fact, most of the time, because we're dragging each other back and we're seeing one of our, it's like that crab in the bucket thing. A lot of someone succeed. I better pull him back down. You got to stay in the pit here with us. Positive ways. I feel what I've done with my native title group.
It's the way forward.
The deal that I've just struck with the state government. It's a very respectful, honourable way forward that I can benefit financially and my people can benefit financially and become business people. We've already got the mechanisms in place. I can negotiate an ILUA, an Indigenous Land Use Agreement. It's a form of treaty. We can take that same blueprint and utilise on a federal level. We can take what I've already negotiated, we can take what I've already done with the state government here in Queensland and say to the feds, hey, we want to negotiate a treaty with you. And here's how we're going to do it for our mob up on our Waitangi native title area. You understand?
Yeah.
There's a lot of big cattle properties up in our area that we've got aspirations of buying and turning it into deals for us. There's pubs up there, the old outback pubs. We'd like to buy them and turn them into a place so we can educate our mob how to drink in moderation, have a meal, have dinner, go home to their families, spend only a certain amount of money on grog, but always go back and take care of the food. And unless we're in control of those situations and actually control the outlet, like I'll tell you more about that, right? Go and visit a town called Burketown. My uncle Murrunduyana is the tribal leader there. He's from the Gungalita tribe, my mother's side. He's my mother's brother. They own and operate the Burketown pub. They own and operate the Burketown fuel station and garage. And he does it under tribal law, and if anybody messes and mucks around, they're banned from the pub. They must make sure their family is taken care of. There's no domestic violence in Burketown. Right. The town is clean, and it's a blueprint of how we can move forward. And I got to say, I really got a whole lot of respect for Uncle Murrund and what he's done, but that's a blueprint for what we can all learn from. The fuel station, if someone's causing a problem or want to go fishing, or they're in domestic violence, beating their wife up, or vice versa, the woman beating a man up, guess what? You're not going to get any fuel to go fishing. You're banned until you fix this up. Right. And our mob actually take care of it with themselves up there. And I got to say, there is a way forward. We're just looking in the wrong places for them. We got to look within ourselves too, as people, as Aboriginal people. I think it's up to us as individuals as well to drop all that rubbish and drop all the petty differences and ugliness and find ourselves as well within it. I've had to learn from it. I'm 47 years old, and I've also had to learn to find a way to be safe within myself, and from my learned experience and my lived experience, and even I've had to I guess come to terms and come to accept what's happened to me and what's happened to my mother, what's happened to our mob as well. So I had to heal myself. And that's the way forward, finding healing within the trauma and the ugliness and the angst and everything that's going with it. So,
what do you think about Aboriginal-only electorates? I mean, in the way it works because of the Treaty of Waitangi in like 200 years ago in New Zealand, is they have, if you're Maori, you can opt to be on the general roll, or you can opt to be on the Maori roll. And the way it works is you've got the whole map of New Zealand. You've got all your electorates for the general roll, the general population. If you choose to be on the Maori roll for the particular election, there's another map, 6 or 7 electorates, depending on, and that can grow, depends on how many people identify on there, and they get a Maori representative. Do you reckon that would that be something you'd be thinking about?
I think what
because ultimately we need to make laws in a parliament.
Yep.
So would that be a way you sort of get that representation there?
I mean, that could possibly be a way.
Separate to the treaty process.
Well, the Maori mob have been living under that. How old is that treaty? 100, 200 years?
200 years.
It's been so the Waitangi Treaty has been around for a long time, and there are some good points to it. There are some negative stuff to it. I think you look at the Maori system and the New Zealand system, and you find, I guess, some of the good things in it that you can utilise here. I'm not sure if just having specifically Aboriginal seats within federal parliament would change much. I mean, it eventually needs to be all one, I feel. I feel eventually we need to have one parliament, one federal parliament, but definitely have representation there with Aboriginal people, with First Nations mob. The current system isn't working because we've still got all these social issues within our communities. We've got health issues and all the rest of it. So it's not. The evidence is showing that it's not working. So let's try and get some smarter people in the room and actually find a way forward. It could work, the Maori system, but then again, I feel it's probably a different set of rules over here. Australia's a bigger place, and I think we could take the best of what the Maoris have, even have a look at some of the other treaties around the world and find a way forward. But I think eventually you have to probably have just one parliament with a mix of everybody in there. We just have to validate it. We have to right the wrongs of the Constitution not being legal due to the treaties situation. And what would come out of sitting and doing treaties is that. Is the process forward? Is the education system being taught proper history in this country? Is the language coming back and being taught? The health system, which I've been fighting as well. I've been fighting the health system for the past 3 years because systemic racism and institutionalized racism within the Australian health system is a pandemic. It's killing people because Aboriginal mob get ignored. They get told that they're an inconvenience, and they die. They pay with their lives. We've had so many people die up home recently, from racism in the health system. And of course, a lot of people don't want to talk about the reactions from the vaccine.
Oh, well, tell me about that because you mentioned on the phone.
Well, just in the last 3 days, we've had 2 young people within in their mid 40s and 30s have strokes from, and I believe it's definitely linked to the vaccinations. I had a cousin die 2 weeks ago, had a heart attack and died. Had a cousin, his older brother, die back 2 days before Christmas. There's been about 45 deaths from heart attacks in an Aboriginal community of Dumaji. The numbers, over 40. Over 40 deaths of heart attacks in the last 2 years.
Didn't hear that on the news, did you?
No, and if you go and look at the records up there and see how many people died of heart attacks, it's mind-blowing. And they're young. They're all, a lot of them are under the age of 40.
Yeah.
There's a couple of elderly ones here and there, but most of them are pretty young. And it's scary. And the numbers, and Dumaji is a community of 2,000 people. If that, maybe 1,600. So the numbers, it's a high rate of people dying from heart attacks. And if you look at the spike in it, it only happened over the last 3 years. The spike in heart attacks have just gone.
Yeah.
We were lucky to have 1 or 2 funerals, maybe 3 at most. Especially if you look at the funerals of the last 20 years and have a look at the numbers each year, it's going through the roof.
Yeah.
Like sorry business in Dumaji now is like a fortnightly occurrence. Every fortnight there's a funeral.
Jesus.
It's mind-blowing.
It's crazy, isn't it? Not darkly, it's sort of darkly emblematic of what you were saying earlier about the germ warfare and how, they came with their blankets with smallpox and all of that in them. And this vaccine, this jab that they sort of brought out there, the fact that they were like, we have to. I remember seeing of the ABC, we got to get the vaccine to the Aboriginal people. They're the most vulnerable in this country. They've got the lowest, life expectancy. We got to get them the vaccine.
Get them first.
And it's just wiped you,
Well, listen to this, right?
Wiping out your community, man.
There's a history of medical violence towards people of colour. There's a history of medical experimentation towards Aboriginal people and people of colour. Black people the world over have been used as experimental lab rats. So it's not far-fetched to think or believe that Aboriginal people in this country are used as guinea pigs and lab rats for experiments such as the vaccine. I also go one further. It's very evident that rheumatic heart disease is still high in Aboriginal communities, which needs open heart surgery. You know what I'm saying? But yet it was eradicated in the white community. So, being someone that thinks outside the box and outside the square, I think, well, is this an experiment? Are they still doing, they need their heart surgeons to practice on someone, so why not an Aboriginal kid from the bush that we don't have any connection to or any care for? There was Aboriginal experiments going on in our mob, for leprosy and other things. So it's a known fact that medical violence has occurred in this country and medical experimentation has happened on our mob. So it's not at all inconceivable that pushing Aboriginal people to the front of the line to get the vaccine was a tactic and a response by the powers that be to test it on our mob first. And if I look at the evidence of the last 3 years and the deaths that have occurred, it tells me that what I'm saying has some legs to it and has some truth behind it. Because the number of people that have died, healthy people, I know an old auntie that I love, one of our last fluent language speakers. After she got her third vax jab, she had a stroke and died. My own uncle, Jonathan Dumaji, who was living with heart condition for years. He had asthma for years. I remember when I was a kid, he used to do a puffer, and recently he started living with dementia. He went to get his asthma and diabetes. He went to get his diabetes tablets last February from the Dumaji hospital, and he got jabbed and vaccinated. Had allergic reaction to it. Was laying on the floor in his room for about 2 days till my mother and our family found him. Went to the Manus Hospital in ICU and spent about a month in ICU, in the bloody intensive care unit up there. He finally came home. They reckon he was all safe and whatnot. 2 months later, had a massive heart attack and died in front of my brother. So,
it's a travesty. It's a travesty, honestly, because the depth of knowledge. I mean, the older people are your history. It's passed down by word of mouth.
Yep.
And it's like and there's no sorry. Yeah. There's no sorry. They're just like, no, look, we're just going to do a federal government inquiry into this. It's not going to look into the state rollout of the vaccines. It's not going to look into the territories. It's just going to whitewash over the last few years. Didn't happen. Look at the voice. I
challenge any journalist, and I'll challenge any journalist out there to go and look at the records of the deaths in Dumaji of the past 3 years, and have a look at the numbers. The numbers don't lie, and the funerals don't lie. Now, I know how much funerals happen up there because one of my roles as the chairman of our Native Title Corporation is to pay for the bodies to come home. A lot of people don't know this, but when you die in an Aboriginal community, especially remote ones like my home, the police and the doctors, the authorities, they fly the bodies out for autopsies and examinations so you can find the cause of death. And then it's up to the families to fly them home, to bring the body home.
Right.
Now, on average, to get someone home, it's about $15,000. To pay for a coffin, coffin's normally worth about $5,000. The plane trip's around $10,000. Like, it's cost around $15,000 a pop to fly an Aboriginal person's body back to their home in Dumaji.
Jesus.
Then you got to worry about the wake, and the families, want to buy funeral clothes, and sometimes they want to get these memorial T-shirts and stuff. So on average, I'll say about 20 grand a death. Now, you ask me how I know this? That's one of my duties as a mob. We've been paying for it through our Native Title Corporation.
You know.
And it's mind blowing how much deaths have happened, because they called me straight away. Oh, such and such just died. We need to get his body home. Suicide, heart attacks, strokes. It's just it's very sad.
It's very sad because many of them are your close family members.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, I think the COVID years very very much woke a lot of people up.
It did.
And now they're looking at what's the next thing. And I think that's why you make the point. This is about dividing.
I wanted to make the point because I feel that they needed a distraction away from all these deaths that are occurring. I think it's a tactic to make you look over here while the other hand does this. And, they're using this romantic, fantasy that we're all going to be equal if the yes votes get up. And we're all going to be on a level playing field. Yeah. How can this government sit there, and justify that, and how can they sit there with a straight face and say that when there's currently laws in place that make us unequal? We are not equal right now under the AMP laws in Queensland, under the Northern Territory Intervention in Northern Territory. There's laws in place right now that absolutely is about colour, is about race, is about and put you on an unlevel playing. You're not on the same playing field. It's so for me to believe them that this voice is gonna give us a level playing field, I'm gonna call bullshit on it, and I do call bullshit on it because they've never had my best interest at heart from the beginning. So why would they now? Why have they already got a conscience now? They've just spent the last 3 years with no conscience, causing mandates and vaccinations on our mob. All of a sudden they got a conscience. Politicians, they lie too much, and they tell too much untruths and misinformation, and they use propaganda. And when you live in a country where the media is controlled by one mob, your television, your radio, your print is all spewing this garbage out and spoon feeding you propaganda every day, of course you're going to wake up believing, I'm an Aussie, mate, and this is my flag, and here's my anthem, and this is my Australia Day, and yes, mate, what they're doing is right for me, because look how great I'm doing. I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, mate. That's how we go. The problem is Aboriginal people had never even had boots on to be able to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, because you even kept them from us. You know what I'm saying? And it's not that I want more than what you got. I just want what you have. I want us to be equal and level, and I want to be able to pull my bootstraps up too. But at the moment, I don't even have a boot to pull up. I don't have straps on there.
Okay.
That's you talk about wanting a way forward. I think the healing must start from us out here on the ground, right? The people, the conservatives that have always had a different view. They've been looking at Aboriginal people through these glasses that have the stereotypes on them and the rhetoric they've been fed by the system, and understand that the stuff you've been going through for the past 3 years with COVID, hopefully that's taking your blinders and blinkers off. And sit with people like myself. Yeah, I'm going to say some very uncomfortable things to you, and I'm going to be passionate about how I feel, but that's because it's affecting me every day. And that's because I'm trying to survive and I'm trying to find a way forward. I'm hoping in 50 years' time that my grandchildren are sitting in the same seat in a suit like yourself going, hey, I don't have to walk around with protest t-shirts on anymore. I don't have to, because my granddad fixed this for us 50 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the hope.
Yeah.
That's the hope. Well, look, I mean, I look at what's been happening, and I knew this referendum was going to fail last year. I just 100% knew. A lot of people were like, oh, when it gets up, Paul Murray, he was like, yeah, when it gets up, and I'm like, it's not getting up, man, because while everyone was locked down, I was out in the street talking to average people like yourself. Not average people like yourself, but like yourself, you were out there, you were talking to people, you understood where people's minds are at, Aussies were at, in your community and the wider community, and you knew that, no, hang on, this is, my mob doesn't want it. People in the city, they know it's not going to really do anything. I knew this thing was going to fail. I wish I had a few $1 million to really mobilise the people in a populist sort of style to get the... There's a lot of programs we could be doing to help Aboriginal people. The crisis of fatherlessness, I think, would be the number one thing I try to help and address. But there's a lot of programs out there. Like I can't remember the reference, but there was one guy. He would bring young dispossessed Aboriginal boys in. He'd show them how to box, keep them accountable, keep them off the grog, and he'd be a father figure to them.
Yep.
Stuff like that. It's like, where the F is the money for that? Like, why aren't we rolling programs like that out everywhere?
Yep.
Like, I'd trust a person like yourself with $1 million over Noel Pearson, who's had $550 million. Not to show throw too much shade, as you said before, but it makes me angry because it's eye-watering the amount of money that's been thrown at this stuff. Where there's communities that they help, for example, Indigenous women that are, there's domestic violence and they're being, raped. There's these shelters that they're crying out for funds just to house some of these women. They can't get a nickel. And it's just, it gives me the craps because it's like, I pay a lot of taxes and you're telling me you're doing this. The board, like any board, like, PwC or Rio Tinto's right there. I didn't even realise. Rio Tinto. Always
here we go, Rio Tinto.
The board would be sacked if there was, if
Rio Tinto is owned by the Queen.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, by the King now.
The King now. Yeah.
So Rio Tinto, BHP, they're all owned by the King.
But I got to be honest, Alec. I got to be honest.
Yep.
In this country, the way things are, maybe this will change. But I'm very much the sort of person that fights for one person, one vote. If you came here legally, if you were born here like myself, I've buried both my dad and my granddad in this country. The way I see it, I'm a part of this. I'm a part of this country as an immigrant. This is, if I was deported tomorrow, and I know you're not saying that. You've said multiple times that I want to deport you. We want to validate, your passport and everything.
We want you to stay.
We want you to stay.
In fact, we want more people of colour to come over.
But I look at a lot of people like myself, and when we start talking about paying the rent, we start talking about handing back land to Aboriginal people and them getting the rent on the land. When it's a place like a national park, no worries, because it's like, okay, absolutely, you should be able to make, whatever you want on there, a tourist industry.
Well, what I did with the national is the first of its kind, so it's a blueprint of the way forward.
It's awesome. Yeah. It's awesome.
It could be used. It could be used anywhere.
Place like this, though, the local Aboriginal tribe here, they started asking for rent for, this building may be owned by the Chinese or some foreign Chinese company or this one. Not only do I see the politicians, who of course they're going to look after their corporate people, but I do look at your mum and pop sort of shop that owns the local Italian restaurant. They're going to start paying land tax to the local Aboriginal tribe. There's a real visceral reaction when we start talking about paying the rent. Yeah. And as long as people have one person, one vote, I don't see how in the urban centres you could get treaties done. Whereas in places like what you've done, I think, wow, that works. Yeah, that works. You can prove your lineage. You can prove you guys are the traditional owners. Even then, I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but this is what my audience is thinking. Good. What do you like? There are some people in my audience. Maybe some of them very racist. They always give me a hard time. The white nationalists. I've got a lot.
Hang on, racist.
There are a lot of white nationalists out here, and they say, maybe not even white nationalists. There are some reasonable people out here that they'll say this. They say, "Hang on, Joel. When the convicts came here, when the British came here, forget about sovereignty was never ceded. They were conquered." That's what they'll say. They'll say, this country, there was a war. Yeah, you know what? We did do germ therapy. And we did do this. And you guys were conquered and you lost. Winner takes all. Like, what's your view on that?
We were conquered. They had the better weaponry. They had better tactics. Pamaway was a very strong warrior. He fought for 11 years and was the resistance.
How did he fight? That's amazing.
They were amazing. Read about the Kalkadoon warriors up our way, the Wanyi warriors, Maimor. We're only pretty new to the invasion. Like, they came up our way back in, my mob. My grandfather was a wild, tribal blackfellow running around the bush in the 1920s and 30s. Yeah, that's true. We did get beaten with tactics. We did get conquered. And thank you for pointing that out. I'm glad someone's talked about this, because there's a lie that this was a settlement. It wasn't a settlement. It was conquered. There was war, and it's still going on. Here's the point. In order for you to build society, when you conquer someone, there's either two ways forward. You wipe out that race completely off the face of that land, and you take it and keep it for yourself, or you sign treaties and contracts to move forward as them being conquered by you. To this date, the paperwork, after we were conquered, has never been brought forward. That's the problem.
Why do a treaty? Why? Like, I've got to ask this. Why are they obligated to a treaty?
I'm pretty sure under the rules of engagement, under the laws of war and conquering someone, when someone lays down and surrenders or cede their sovereignty, you then have to sign treaties. Right. You then have to sign contracts.
I'm ignorant about that. I didn't know that. Right. If that's a thing.
So anyway, no matter where you go, right, unless you wipe them completely out. And this is the truth. The truth is, if you've conquered us, show me your paperwork. Show me the evidence of where I've ceded my sovereignty and you've won. A lot of people around the world say to me, we got treaty with our oppressors, whether it's the white fellows or the Spanish or whatever, we got that. Yeah. And I said, well, gee, that must make us the most staunchest warriors in the entire world, because we never bowed down. Regardless of all the shit that happened to us, we've never taken the knee and bowed down and said, we cede our sovereignty. You understand?
Whereas the voice would be. If you
exactly,
voted for the voice. Right.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying.
So the voice is us ceding our sovereignty and laying down our weapons and saying, we give up, you've conquered us.
Right. And it's an easy way to do it for everyone.
And let me say this. Sure. You cannot do that unless there's paperwork in place, a treaty, a contract, and a accord to then validate us on that constitution. That's a conquered people. A conquered people is when we go, yep, we've conquered, let's talk treaty. It's like if you turn up to a work site, say before that was built, right? Sure. Someone was there building a humpy on there, and the contractors that built that skyscraper turned up and said, hey, we're going to build a skyscraper here. okay, let's do a contract between us so we can work on this skyscraper together.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what needs to happen.
Right.
And it's the right way forward, brother. And it also, for all you conservatives out there, we want to help you become legal in this country by validating that constitution, by chatting about these over in, have you ever been to Noumea?
Yeah, I have actually.
New Caledonia?
Yeah, I have.
So New Caledonia, they have an accord with the French.
Right.
They were conquered by the French.
Yeah.
Right? They've got a tribal council there, the Kanakas, and it's only recent. In 91, they fought with guns against the French to take their sovereignty and to fight for this accord. So they get a accord, and I was over there in 2017 showing my film, Zach's Ceremony, and I met with the tribal council, and they spoke to me about their accord, and it was up for renewal. So they do a 20-year accord, it's like a treaty every 20 years, and they work together. They create a society that is respectful of each other.
Right.
That's what hasn't been done here, and that's what we need to. That's what we need to do. That.
What if the government's like, the Queensland government, for example? No, look, you guys lost. We'll give you a few scraps, but that's it. That's the treaty. That's done. So if you guys don't sign that, and you say this is a piece of crap, we're owed more.
You know what the art of Didiri is? You ever heard of anyone talk about the art of Didiri?
No.
So Auntie, what's her name? Auntie Judy Atkinson. Lovely lady. She's from down Lismore way. She speaks about the art of Didiri, and it's a tribal way of Aboriginal people. It's the art of waiting for the right time, the perfect storm, the right moment, the right people, right? The art of Didiri, we're the masters of that. We're the masters of waiting for the right moment and waiting for people to wake up. Right. And young brothers like yourself that are out here searching for the truth and speaking to different tribal groups and cultures, and you come back from New Zealand speaking to the Maori mob, you're part of our art of the truth being told. The great cleansing, even COVID. COVID was the art of Didiri. We were sitting back watching everybody awaken after getting locked down and putting chains and shackles on them for 3 years and enforcing, unlawful mandates and, untried vaccines on them. The art of Didiri is being able to wait for the right time, the perfect storm. And if this doesn't go through, we'll wait longer.
No longer.
We are a surviving people, and we are also in our home, we're in our backyards. Whether this voice gets up or not is not going to affect us. Whether it says yes or no, we'll go with the flow and see where it takes us, but we'll also wait for the right thing to happen. And we'll wait for young fellows like yourself and other young men and women out there that will want what's just and what is true and what is right. And if I was someone that didn't want a treaty with the people I've conquered, I'd feel unfulfilled as a human being. I would feel like something just wasn't right, and that piece of the puzzle that makes me an Aussie or an Australian just wasn't connected. And why wouldn't you want connection to one of the most powerful and significant spiritual people in the world? An ancient culture that has been continuing for over 80,000 years plus. It only makes you better, and it gives you, it makes you feel more whole and belonging if you're a part of that. Why wouldn't you want to be a part of that? I mean, it's like looking up at the night sky and not seeing the Milky Way. You're missing a piece of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want to become part of the Milky Way?
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful thing.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. I really want, if you guys are listening right now, as long as the show's, successful and, 3 years into it, I want to fly you to Sydney. I want to have this discussion about an area I don't fully, I'm clearly learning a lot about this, the treaty making process, the art of conquering, the art of war, what is done. Because you're right. I was watching The Patriot. I know it's just a movie.
Yeah. No, but it's this similar story, similar fields.
The British, not specifically about the indigenous people there, but the British said, "Look, we're conquering these people that are fighting for America. The Redcoats were fighting against the locals there, the people that were born there, and the Americans." Yeah. And he said, "Look, in the manner that we fight this war, this is like the top guy, the top general. We've got to resume commerce with these people after it, and we've got to move forward with them."
Yep.
Now, obviously, they didn't have a treaty after, but there are treaties in America with the indigenous people in some of the states where they're making their own sort of area. They're carving it out, and so this is a foreign concept. It just makes me so angry because we don't learn about this in school. We don't learn about any of this stuff in school.
That's why what you're doing is important, my young brother, because you're giving someone like myself a platform to be able to speak to you from a different perspective and a different life experience, right? And one thing that I pride myself on is respecting others' lived experience and others' cultures. I can sit in a house with an Asian man, whether he's Chinese, Japanese, or Korean, and I'll respect his laws and his values and his religion and his culture. And I'll taste his amazing food, and I'll go, oh my God, this is beautiful. I adapt to that situation to become part of his environment.
Yeah.
All we're asking as First Nation people is to be afforded that same respect and adapt to our, culture and our way of life as well, but also respect it. I don't expect to be running around out in the bush spearing kangaroos and eating guano like I do.
Why not?
Well, you can't if you want, brother. Yeah. But what I would like to is to be afforded that same respect. Yeah. I walk around my country now, and I go to the airports. I see, prayer rooms at the airport for when people want to go to a Muslim prayer. Respect that. Thank you. How come I can't have the same respect as well in my own land? It is so blatantly obvious that they're blinded to the plight or to the needs and the wants and the respect of our cultural tribal law in this country. We need to change that. We need to flip it on its head and actually be open. If we're going to be accepting of all these other, people's values, why not ours? Why not ours to bring to the forefront? And stop using us as a political football to kick around.
God. Please,
we use that.
Out, yeah.
And what it does is it turns off people like you, the conservatives out there. It turns them against us and make them hate on us. And when Aboriginal people come out and be very passionate and staunch and can't articulate themselves in a way, it again creates a division and are you against us stuff.
Yeah.
It's actually not a you against us stuff. It's actually, if we want to change this country for the better, we have to find a solution and adapt to each other. Otherwise, it's just going to keep damming up until the waters bust, until the rivers overflow. Like, you can't keep damming this up.
No, well, and this is the problem. There's a perception, and we talked about it when I said the 40 billion and how it's being mismanaged, and there should be an audit so we know where every dollar goes, how much goes to consultants, how much. There's a perception, and I do on the whole agree with this. There's a perception that, actually no, I don't agree with this. There's a big perception that Aboriginal people, they're given every leg up in the country because 40 billion gets allocated. Now, you rightly point out, that's to white fella consultants, mate. And I totally agree with that. And it's all concentrated in Canberra. That's why Canberra has the highest median income, highest average income in the country. It's a concentration of a professional class. Yep. Canberra is an artificial city that was created. There's no river there. There's no reason it should be situated there. It shouldn't be there. But that's where it is. The frustration is, and everyone can see it in their respective industry, right from the time that you apply to join a school, there are scholarships for Aboriginal only people. Mm-hmm. They don't even test. They don't genetically test at this. If you ask for a genetic test, as Mark Latham tried to from One Nation a few years ago, he got called a racist just for asking, can you show me some paperwork from your local Aboriginal tribe, some sort of authority piece of paper that tells me that you're actually a part of them? You can't ask for any genetic...
Well, one of the duties of our native title corporation, right? I'm the chairman. One of our duties is we do forms of Aboriginality.
Perfect.
Because we know our community, we know each other, we know people.
Exactly. That's great.
And that's what needs to happen.
That's what we need. But instead what we get, and I just want to say this for a few people, instead what we get, for example, someone like me in construction, I went, I worked, I studied at school, I went to university. If I ticked the Aboriginal box, I would have been given a lower bar to entry in order to get into university. I didn't need it, obviously, so I didn't tick it. Yeah. And also, I'm not Aboriginal, it would be lying. But on top of that, when you go to apply for jobs, Aboriginal? Yep, absolutely. Torres Strait Islander? Yep, no worries, we'll give you a leg up. Even when you're applying for government jobs in construction, I don't know if you knew this, but there are contracts where if you don't have a set amount, like 1.5% of your total construction build cost, 1.5% of it doesn't go towards certain Aboriginal tradesmen coming up or Aboriginal-owned businesses, you don't get the job. So there's all these little inbuilt things that people are seeing, that's just construction, but in their respective industries, they're seeing these things. And they're at the point now with the voice where they're like, just stop. And there's a huge... I have a theory that every time they do a plebiscite, every time they do a referendum, it makes the Australian population hate the topic that it's about. For example, LGBTQ plus stuff. Yep. Ever since the 2017 plebiscite, they've been shoving all this stuff down the throat. They've been indoctrinating kids in the school. They've been doing drag story time in the libraries. people have had enough of it. The Muslim community, they've had enough of it, especially the Middle Easterners. It's divided the country.
Yeah.
I feel like the same thing's happening with this voice referendum, as you pointed out.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I'm just going to dump that. Yeah. What do you think about all that?
There's a few things there. One,
Sure.
one is this. I'll say this first. What is the biggest money maker in the world?
No idea.
War.
Well, just 100%. Raytheon,
War.
yeah, absolutely.
War, right?
Yeah.
Everyone likes war. Not everyone, but the money makers like war because it's money. So this is a form of that. It's a form of war in the suburbs, right? Causing division, causing angst, causing arguments, because there's money to be made in it, right? There's money, millions of dollars going into the yes campaign, millions of dollars going into the no campaign. In the middle, there's a grassroots fellow like myself that look at it both and go, they're both branches of the same illegal bird, and they're all doing this shit together. So both wings of the same bird, or both branches of the illegal tree. Back to your story about Indigenous fellows. There's a clause in there for having. Have you ever come across any really wealthy Aboriginal construction companies?
Oh, heaps. I couldn't tell you the name of them.
Are they run and owned and operated by Aboriginal fellows?
I know the ownership is. It depends. The devil's in the detail. The devil's in the detail.
Exactly.
Usually there are.
So what I'm trying to get at is,
Yeah, sure.
don't you think that was put in there for a reason and that it's a tactic to cause this sort of stuff? If you look, stand back and have a look at it. If there's no evidence of really wealthy millionaires, Aboriginals, having these cranes and big construction companies in this country, why are those clauses in there?
I genuinely think the government is doing it because they think it's going to make a difference. I think it's a virtue signal. I reckon that because at the end of the day, they want to be able to say, no, we've allocated.
Here's another example, right, about the English language and the forked tongue of it all, and the misinformation and misdirection and all the propaganda goes with it. They tell Aboriginal people that you're going to get special treatment, you're going to get Aboriginal housing. And you white fellas, especially like, let's just say, the white fellas that live on the poverty line, you get housing commission homes. Guess what? They're both the same thing. An Aboriginal housing mob and a housing commission mob are both the same thing. They just get a different name. Right. Here's another example. If I go to university, if I go to school, I get AB study. Right? Aboriginal person, they've created for Aboriginal people AB study. You get Oz study. Right? That's the funding you get from Centrelink or whatever. Oz study and AB study. Guess what? They're the same thing. It's the same amount of money. They just choose to name something different to make you go, he's getting more than me. There's a really famous photo I've seen recently, and it's the king standing on top of this building. It's a cartoon, sure. And there's people down the front with pitchforks, and there's people with torches with fire.
Yeah.
And the guy, in trouble, and the fellow looks at me and goes, you don't have to fight them all. You just tell the pitchfork, or you just tell the torch people that the pitchfork people want to take the torches away. So that's basically what it is.
Okay, yeah.
It's a tactic and a trick.
Divide and conquer.
Well, that's what it is,
right.
And that's what this is, right? It's making a group of people feel like someone's getting more than them, right. and it's not true. If that was true, wouldn't you think the Aboriginal situation would be a hell of a lot better? Wouldn't you think that there'd be more businessmen, more educated, university graduates from the Aboriginal community, more scientists, anthropologists, archaeologists, or astronauts for that matter, or construction companies? There isn't. So the evidence totally against about what that little trick in there has done. It's tricked. Right. It's tricking businessmen like yourself to go, these Aboriginal fellows are getting more feed than me. They're getting more on their table than I am. Not true. I'm a pretty smart guy, right?
I think so. I'll say it. You can't say it for yourself, man.
I think I am, but yet I'm not a millionaire, and yet I can't. I've not gone out and took advantage of these construction companies and the clause in there that gives me a leg up.
Yeah.
Because it's not attainable. It's unattainable for me. And like I said to you earlier, if I walked into a bank door and said I want to get a loan so I can start my own construction company, give me 20 million. Not going to happen because of the obstruction and all the stuff we've spoken about the last 2 hours since we've been sitting here. It is all smoke and mirrors, and it's all tricks, and it's been going on for a long time. And this country is really good at denial and really good at confusing people and creating division amongst the mob. Muddy the water, murky it, and make you fight against each other so you stay away from us fat cats up here, living the high life.
Can I ask you a question about the welcome to country? And I mean, in New South Wales, there was a big debate about whether it should cost $4 million to put the Aboriginal flag on the Harbour Bridge.
Why is the flag cost? I could put it up there for free.
But
$4 million to put a flag up.
mate, I got to be honest, man. That Aboriginal flag, it kind of gives me the shits because it's like no one voted on it. We voted on an Australian flag, where one person, one vote. The Aboriginal flag is something where it's like each Aboriginal group, they're their own group. Like when you start unifying people like that, it's a bit like what's going on with this voice. It's like they're trying to take away your sovereignty, and unify you under one flag. I'm like you're all your own thing. But these virtue signal things like welcome to country, that doesn't do anything for you guys. It's just sort of I'm a good human being. I'm aware. I'm woke. I recognise these people. I understand why you did it a second ago about welcome to country. I understand because you're deferring to their sort of law, their leadership. But every time we're at an event, for a speech day for a school, they say, recognise the people.
I think it has become a bit of an overused thing to continually be welcoming people on the country. It also I guess acts as and look, I don't know who implemented these, whether it's the government or the state or the feds or wherever it come from, but it's also an implemented, I guess, instruction from the powers that be, again, to cause these sort of chaos and arguments, right? The divisionary thing. Flags, for that matter, is a white man's construct. Flags have come from, I guess, the white world. A lot of our mob, like me, I identify, like I said a minute ago, under my name, my skin, and also identify with my markings. My markings is my flag. So the markings I wear on my body, my
Isn't
body.
It your totem? Isn't it your totem? Like you guys have like a specific animal?
You can wear your totems as well.
Right.
But the markings so if our mob went to war or if we were on a hunting party, I would wear my markings from my birida, the marks of my... so when we turn up to big initiation ceremonies, we come in our groups, in our gangs. Our gang, my group, my marking identifies me. Yeah, not the flag. The flag came in, I think, in the late 60s, early 70s as part of, I guess, something to fight under, a banner to all unite us under, around the land rights movement and all that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different stories about who created it first, where it came from. But again, it was a white idea to come under a flag to identify with. Same with your hooligans or your soccer crazy man, your football. I watch some of I'm not a big football fan for soccer for that matter, but I watch when the two different, like Liverpool and Manchester, when they meet, they give each other flags. It's like, this is our tribe, we're here to represent our mob. So I think that's where the idea came from.
I'm not sure if it's a white thing. I think everywhere around the world, except Australia, basically had that. It was sort of like a way to identify in war.
So it's a similar thing. So we wear our markings. Yeah. So if anything, you probably have to have, to identify different tribes, probably your tribal groups have their own flag or their own markings. In America, they do. They're different. Like I've seen the Mohawks have their own flag. The Lakota Indians, like at the Shijanku mob at Rosebud, there where I visit a lot, they've got their own flag that represents that tribe. Yeah. And then beside them, the other mob have their own. So there's different bands in the tribes. You got the Hangpapa, you got the Shijanku, you got all these different bands within the Lakota tribe or the Sioux Nation, and they all represent each other differently in the different flags. So I think, again, tactics like putting the Australian flag, an Aboriginal flag, up on the bridge, it's a meaningless gesture to cause division and anger and angst, and to continue throwing mud at the blackfellas. And like it was our idea to do it. I couldn't give a shit whether the flag's up there or not. But it does prove to me that this country still has unfinished business, because how can you have two flags representing the one country? So this comes back to my point again. Yeah. The government knows that they're illegally occupying our country without consent, so a gesture is raising that Aboriginal flag to say, we're sorry, but here's your flag up on our bridge. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so to right that wrong, we need to address the unfinished business of terra nullius, of the denial of the right way forward. Yes, you've conquered us. Let's talk treaty. When people say to me, we defeated you in war, we're better than you, we had better weaponry, we conquered you, I say, yeah, well, where's your paperwork? And he says, what do you mean? I said, well, you didn't annihilate me completely, because I'm a descendant of an Aboriginal woman, so my Aboriginal mob is still here. So unless you've killed me off completely and annihilated me off the face of the planet, you must have an accord or some paperwork to justify your current occupation. And when they say, even if you've defeated me, like, I give up, you've defeated me, where's your paperwork?
Right. Yeah,
that paperwork hasn't been filled out, and we need to do that. And when we do that, I reckon a flag will go up there that represents us all. You know, like at the moment,
and there should be a vote for that. There should be a vote that yep, sovereignty ceded, treaty's done, new flag. Yeah. You know, maybe we stick with the old blue flag, but whether we do that or not, the point look, is there was no vote for this Aboriginal flag.
It'll also address the fact that the King, when Governor Arthur Phillips came here, sent him clear instructions to negotiate treaties with the native man, or the native woman, or the first, the original people, and they didn't. So we're living with, historical injustices that before our time that we're trying to rectify, and it only moves forward if we actually get to the table properly. Even with Albanese's current push for the voice, originally it was voice, then treaty, then truth-telling. All of a sudden, the treaty and truth-telling are gone. It's just about this voice. I've never heard anyone speak about the voice, the treaty anymore.
I disagree with what I heard. You had Warren Mundine on your show a couple of weeks ago, and I disagree with what he said. He said that they've taken it out. I don't think they have, and this is where a lot of conservatives are coming from. This voice proposal, it's the reason we call it a blank check and a Trojan horse is because they haven't said the detail because they're going to do it later. There could still be, and you might like this, you may not like this, there could still be a treaty-making process after this voice gets up, if it gets up. I don't think it'll get up. Because the idea is that the Parliament will inform what the voice looks like after the vote. There could still be an opportunity. So I actually disagree with what Warren was saying. Warren was saying they're walking it back. This particular proposal doesn't have a treaty-making process and a truth-telling and a Makarati commission. But what he means by that, is in politician speak, I was listening very closely. He's from Canberra. I was listening very closely to him.
Warren's a politician. Me and Warren are like chalk and cheese. He's a politician, and a lot of the stuff he says certainly, and he also plays to his audience, right? Yeah. Like he was on my podcast, he played to his audience because he knows that I'm a different beast to him. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm from the bush, and I'm from, like I said, I'll say again, I'm an initiated tribal lawman, and I carry my culture very strong, and I speak the truth. So he also played to the fact that he was on my program, and he spoke in a different way. And what he said at the press club was totally different to what he was saying to me. Like it was very provocative what he said at the press club. He said the voice is a declaration of war on modern Australia. It's absolute rubbish. It's not a declaration of war on modern Australia. We're already at war. We continually be at war. I just spoke to you a minute ago about my survival mechanisms, like coming here, even today, thinking about how I'm going to speak to you about some of this stuff and trying to open your eyes to what it is to be an Aboriginal person in this country. It is a constant barrage of bombs coming at you. And even now, like, we're expected to know everything about this voice, and we expect to have all the answers to it, and we're expected to fix it. Why is it up to us when we weren't the one that created this shit? You know what I mean? Why is it all of a sudden you want us to fix the problems you caused? I'm not saying you, but I'm saying this society. And, Warren and others like him, they've also got their agenda.
They do,
and they've got their reasonings why they're doing and saying the stuff they're saying. And
because he's a part of the establishment, he's just not with Noel Pearson.
He definitely is part of the establishment because Warren's gone.
He got jabbed. The guy got jabbed, didn't he? I'm pretty sure he got jabbed, and
Well, I was saying this a while ago, because people were talking about sovereignty and they never ceded it. If you got jabbed, I feel like you've already ceded it, because if you've taken the knee and bowed down to the oppressor's demands with that. You surrendered, brother. You're done.
And we're not. Look. This is the thing.
Where's the save the nan crowd now? Save your nan. Take it for your nan. Oh my God.
But with Warren,
I'll tell you. I've seen more people die in the last 3 years from that jab than actually not taking it. I kept my mother away from it. Something you said a minute ago that I wanted to address. It was about what was it?
Treaty.
Something you said about Warren.
She's actually a part of the Aboriginal establishment.
No,
it's on a few
dozen. It's going to come back in a minute.
With Warren, I'm obviously, I like Warren. I know him on a personal level. I know many of the people in the No campaign.
Yep.
And Warren, he came up through Recognise a Better Way, which is a different organisation that was in the early days of the No campaign fighting.
Yep.
Then they came out with their statement. He didn't quite agree with it. Eventually, he jumped over to the Fair Australia, which is a part of Advance Australia.
Advance Australia model.
Which was there's a few people on that board, that was the more Tony Abbott approach, Jacinta Price approach. Jacinta and Warren, they don't agree on everything, including the treaty-making process. Yeah. I will say that. But the reason why I bring up what Warren said to you is because my understanding isn't that this voice proposal is going to close the door to the treaty process. And you might like this, and that's fine. That's fine if you like it. But the problem is you won't be the one negotiating the treaty. Yep. It'll be presumably this council of 24.
What I'll say to you is this, right? And I see that a lot of the Conservatives are worried that they're getting tricked into, then when they get across there's going to be a treaty being spoken about. I'll say this, right? In my lived experience and in the evidence presented to me by this government and others before it, state and federal, there is no way that I would agree to anything with this government, because the evidence against them, it totally is in the opposite. It is not of my interest. Right. It is not for the betterment of the native man of this country, or the native woman. I keep saying that, for the native person. It is totally the opposite. So I don't see that there will be a treaty process after the voice to Parliament if it gets up. Right. What I see is they're testing the waters. They've come out. They're through the Recognise campaign out a few years back, and I feel it was all instigated back in '92 when Uncle Eddie Mabo proved that Terra Nullius was invalid and was, the doctrine of Terra Nullius was overturned. And I think this has been coming for a while. Yeah. And I feel, they've been planning it and trying to get through it and trying to find a way, and Howard did this, and Abbott for that matter. Even Malcolm Turnbull spoke about wanting to become a republic, right? So they have been having discussions within the halls of Parliament. And I'm sure Warren and Noel and all of them were all part of these discussions. They were all privy to some of these conversations. And they're all trying to find a way to trick their way through it. The problem is that the more people take off the blindfolds and actually do some research within what the Constitution actually is and how it all came about, I think you're going to find that the change will come from us, from the people like you and me, the people that are out there that actually do have a conscience and do want a fair go for all, and actually want to go, hang on a minute, this Alec Dumaji fellow is saying some stuff here that actually does resonate with us, and also resonates with the Aboriginal people back on the country and back on the land. Again, everybody that's within the No and Yes campaign all got their own agendas. They all say they're affiliated with their tribal groups, and they all say they're grassroots, and they go out and do this and that. And I'm not going to dismiss that, and I'm not going to attack them for who they want to believe or feel they are. I'm only going to judge people on the evidence in front of me, and I will see the evidence that moves forward and the way I was treated, and my learned experience and lived experience over the past 47 years in my life. And this government has not given me any evidence to prove to me that they are going to do the right thing by First Nation people. Therefore, I don't believe there's going to be a treaty that comes out of this Yes campaign. I don't believe there's going to be a treaty that comes out of No campaign. Right. I believe the treaty is going to come out of the people, us here, pushing for it as a whole. Because, like I said, I don't want your mob to go home. I want to validate your existence here, and I want to have you here legally. Under the current status quo, you're not. And under the current status quo, my people don't have the best life expectancy. My people are dying in huge numbers. And if the numbers at the moment is, 350,000 people of Aboriginal descent in this country, I can guarantee you that number's gone down in the last 3 years. Big 100%. Time. Because it's certainly gone down in my community.
Yeah. I was just talk about, we talk about genocides. It's like far out. My understanding of the voice proposal in the early days, and I wish I could pull it up on my phone, but the early wording on it, I said it on stage in September last year. I had Professor Augusto Zimmerman. He's another constitutional expert that I would love to sit you in the same room with. I said to him, okay, this is my understanding of the wording of the voice, basically right now what we have. There shall be an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice that will make representations to the Parliament. Okay, yep. There was a second point which basically was saying it was going to make representations. And then the third point was that the powers, like the makeup, the ability of the voice will be informed by the Parliament. So what that meant was the initial vote, the key in the door to change the Constitution, because you've got to do a referendum to change the Constitution, is there will be a body. But in terms of what power it has over the Constitution, in terms of who makes it up and how they're elected, all the detail, that will be filled in by legislation after. So that's a blank check.
Exactly.
And so when I say it could keep the door open to the treaty, we don't know. We don't know who's going to sit on it. We don't know if it's going to cede your sovereignty. We don't know any of this stuff. And so it was a very easy thing for me to, as someone who clearly doesn't know much about, the conquering of a nation and the treaty-making process, it was a very simple no. Because it was like, you bastards, like, in terms of me and my mob in Western Sydney, this could change everything. I mean, and so that it was a very simple no at that point. And it became all about beating it. And I think that's why a person like yourself and myself, why we have agreement on this, because it's like, it's a very simple no. We don't trust this government.
Yeah, I don't trust them, and I see your point, and I see, I guess a lot of people, the first thing they think about, in human beings, it's human nature that the first thing you think about is, okay, what am I going to lose? How this affects me? How does this affect my family? Oh my God, this is so bad. You know what I mean? And I understand that, and I respect that. I also understand, my mob and what we want. We want what is just and fair. And we want what is right. We don't want some watered down, trick, or we don't want some
fake land title you can't take to the bank. That's bullshit.
It's rubbish. It's absolutely rubbish. And the evidence of land rights and native title, I've lived through it. I am a product of all that stuff. I'm a product of, like I said earlier, slavery. My mother was a slave. I'm a product of the brutality of the missionaries. I, out of everybody in this country, should be more angry and pissed off with this society and with white men and with white people in general. But I'm still sitting here going, hey, no, here's the hand. I still want to find a way through this. And I want to find it a way legally and just and fair for all of us, because at the moment it isn't. I don't think the politicians on both sides have our best interests at heart. And it's a trick and a tactic and a political football to kick around the old blackfellow whenever they need a distraction. And they needed a big distraction because there was some pretty heavy stuff going on over the last couple of years. And the minute someone like myself or like you, for instance, speak about them, we get labelled and tagged and called conspiracy theorists, or got an axe to grind, or this person just got hatefulness or whatever. And also, they come after you.
Yeah,
a lot of people are in fear of that. They're in fear of when they come after you. I mean, the minute you speak out against the system and you unplug yourself from the matrix and you see it as far, you can't unsee it. But then they come after you. And people are in fear of that as well. I guess hope and wish, and pray for a better day for our people, all of us that live here in this country, and I hope I can, create some kind of bridge between all of the different nationalities that have immigrated here or come over here or came here in chains or call this place home, but it has to be done respectfully and honestly. And we have to dig deeper than the surface level stuff. We have to stop looking at stereotypes. We have to stop looking, well, you got this and I didn't get that. And we have to really dig to the core of this country. And if me saying some pretty radical sort of, I guess, powerful stuff out on my platform awakens some mob or makes the Marx more question, then my duty to my people, to my kids, to my family, to my law, to my culture, has been done. And I regard myself, as someone that always very truthful, very honest to my people, but always will, fight the good fight and have a conscience about all the human race, all the different tribes, and all the different people that have come to this land to call it home. Wouldn't you like to grow up with your grandchildren being, proper legal Aussies?
Yeah.
Or do you want to still see that, Aboriginal flag and Australian flag flying separately up on that bridge?
Yeah, no, I don't want to see the division. I don't want to see the division, man. And this is the thing, it hurts. I think what hurts the most is when I see people that, they were sort of with me during COVID, and, the people on the same page as me. In the last few weeks, I gave a speech about why I'm opposing the voice and why immigrants are opposing the voice.
Yep.
I made the point that it's disrespectful to the, all the Anzac soldiers that went and fought in the wars. Mm-hmm. And it's true, because if we didn't have the soldiers, if we didn't have the Battle of the Coral Sea, and we didn't fight side by side with the Americans, we wouldn't have Australia. The Japs would have just forget about Aboriginal sovereignty and fixing all the problems of the treaties. We would have lost. Mm-hmm. Remember the Brisbane line? We were going to sell off the entire north part of Australia. Mm-hmm. Just give it to the Japs so that they'd leave us alone. So we'd be ceding sovereignty. But no, Aboriginal soldiers, Australian soldiers, we all fought side by side, and we fought them back. And this voice proposal, in my opinion, I made the point, is disrespecting what they fought for, because they all fought under one flag. And I've had Aboriginal people, even white fellas in the freedom movement, they say that's racist. They say what you're fighting for is the reason, the reasoning you've given is racist and this and that. And I'm like, hey, I'm talking with you. The establishment isn't. And as long as we're talking and not fighting, we can move forward on this issue. But if you're going to start calling people racist that are honestly putting the reasons forward why they oppose the voice, and they want to move forward on this issue, then we're never going to get anywhere on this. And we're going to have what we've always got, which is nothing except a fat bureaucratic class.
I'll say this, right, about that. Japanese people are very cultural people. Got a lot of cultural tribal law. They believe in spirituality, have similar beliefs to Aboriginal mob. Same with Chinese. So if they did invade here and take over, I reckon we would have done pretty good.
You reckon? You reckon?
I reckon Aboriginal mob would have been all right on them. I deal with a lot of Chinese people, and I've sat with them, and they understand a lot of the cultural tribal aspect. They also understand curses. Same with the Japanese.
Right.
The Japanese mob, like they have the ninjas, right? Ninjas. We have similar mob amongst us called the Featherfoot man, the Featherfoot people. They're like ninjas, Aboriginal ninjas. So there's a lot of similarities and a lot of respect amongst the different cultures. And I'm not saying that it would have been all hunky-dory and good, but I reckon we probably would have had a better go with the Japanese being invading here than what we're doing now with the British.
Right.
But again, even with the British, like I speak to a lot of people from Britain that understands us more. There's a difference between a British person or someone from England than an Aussie that's third or fourth generation of here. There's a whole different kind of, I guess, thinking behind each of them. But I'm not going to sit here and say woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah, exactly. It's impossible.
I'm going to sit here and say what I'm dealing with today, the reality of what I'm dealing with. And what I'm dealing with is not good and not working. Okay, so I'm not going to sit here and go, what if the Spanish invaded? You would have had a bad time then if the Spanish came in. Cool, I get you. I get you what you're trying to say.
Doesn't justify anything.
Doesn't justify this shit. What we're in here, the rubbish and thing we're in here, and the evidence is this: every country that the Spanish or the Chinese or the Japanese or the French have invaded, they've signed treaties, and they live together and work together and build a better society. This one hasn't. Let's fix that. Right. Let's rectify those those wrongs of the past, and let's take responsibility for it. Let's own it. There's a good documentary that I watched from Michael Moore, great documentary filmmaker from America.
I know him. Yeah.
So he made Bowling for Columbine, right? About the school shootings. He made one recently called Where to Invade Next, because America invades all these countries and they should invade one that actually is a bit more well set up. Yeah. So he went to Italy and he goes, you invade here, you can have siesta at midday and you get all these benefits. Anyway, he went to Germany and he looked at the German society. And the teenagers, the kids that were going to school, right? They got big shrines and big statues to remind them of what happened with the Holocaust and what happened in World War II and Hitler. And a lot of those kids there, in this documentary, he speaks to teenagers, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, 7-year-olds, and they take responsibility for what their forefathers did. And they own it, and they say, and he said, and why do you do that? He goes, so we will never make that mistake. We will move forward as a different people, and we use those teachings and those wrongs and those injustices and those horrific treatment of those people to make us better people. That's what we need to. We need to get to a point in this country where Australia is mature enough to own its past, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and actually take responsibility for it and move forward differently. And so we never repeat the same criminal activity of the past. That is to me a powerful thing as human beings that we can do. And I can only deal with the situation we're in, and the current climate is that of one of change. And if this voice sparks these conversations to actually go around the right track to validate everything and to make sure our constitution is inclusive and is respectful of our past and look into the future, then I'm all for it. But we can't be dictated to it, and I don't want a blank check. And this government hasn't given me any evidence to believe that they're going to do the right thing by me. I believe it's a trick. I believe it's a trick to get First Nations people on the Constitution to make that a legal document. And they then won't talk about treaty because they've got what they wanted. Because you only talk about treaty if you get that paper, right?
Yeah.
Once that paperwork's done and filled out, the conquering's been done. It's flat, so you can't talk treaty after that. So that tells me that there's something not right here. And I want to question it. And I want to pull it up. And if pulling it up is voting no, then I'm going to vote no. You understand? Right. Because I want what's best for not just my mob, my people, but I want what's best for you and your mob. And I want what's just and right and to heal the wounds of the past. And we can't get rid of this disease by keep putting Band-Aid fixes on it.
Yeah.
We have to treat the disease properly and give the right medicine for it. And the right medicine forward is truth-telling, and is actually signing proper contracts between our peoples. And the government needs to address that. And whether the British monarchy has to be involved, because they're the ones that came in and did it, they have to rectify it and fix it. I know not much about republics, and I'm not an expert in that, but I think we're a long way off talking about becoming a republic here. So we need to deal with the situation that's at hand, and we need to find a way respectfully through this.
Yeah. Well, look, Alec, mate, we've almost been speaking for 3 hours. This has been very enjoyable. I think there's a lot of people in my audience, they're going to be they're going to have a gag reflex to the idea of treaty because of some of the people that have been advocating for treaty making processes in the country. But, on this topic and on many topics, I don't know about this stuff. And I think the only way to sort of stumble forward towards the truth as a brother is by more conversations like this so that we can
100%.
Understand it. And that's why I'm very much interested to send this conversation, when edited, to a bunch of people like Professor David Flint, Stephen Shavura, Professor Augusto Zimmerman, who I think can give me probably the other side to this. But my gut reaction is that, we need to localise this. Any attempt to centralise Aboriginal voices under a singular voices doesn't work. And I think that was the wisdom from the Nationals and Peter Dutton when they opposed this really early. Peter Dutton much later, the Nationals earlier. The Nationals were like, no, you can't do this, you can't take away their voices because they all have their own individual voices. Just look at the map of the Aboriginal Australia. So many different nations, so many different ways of dealing, different peoples, totems, history. You can't just centralise it. So my gut reaction is, you know what, I think that there is something that's got to change on this because there's clearly a conflict with what the Crown was saying and what was done. And look, that might have to be a treaty-making process individually with individual people. I think it's going to be difficult. I think that it's going to have to be done in goodwill, but this is going to be a slow one.
Yes, of course it has. And look, like I said to you earlier, we're the experts, we're the masters of the art of Nadiri. Aboriginal people are the masters of how to wait for the right time. I feel that there needs to be more information. There needs to be more information sessions. The current ones that they're doing with the Yes vote and the Yes campaigners and the No campaigners, it's all they're talking to you. And there's bully tactics going on. There's a lot of bullying going on within the Aboriginal community as well. Some of the Aboriginal mob that are up there on the pedestals, sort of talking for their agenda. They're bullying normal everyday followers that just want to question things.
Sometimes the Aboriginals, they kick the Aboriginals out when they rock up to these meetings. So it's Aboriginal elder. It's like, in Middle Eastern culture, when the elderman is speaking, you shut the F up.
Same within Aboriginal culture, it's the same. It's just that some people have been disconnected from their roots, and when I think Malcolm X said it best, when sometimes an apple falls so far away from the tree, it doesn't even know it's part of that tree anymore. And Malcolm X, I love Malcolm. I've been reading his books lately, and he said this back in the 60s. He goes, the white man don't have to lynch us anymore because he taught us so well how to lynch ourselves. And that's what's going on. We're lynching ourselves when there's a big opportunity here to actually fix some of the problems and right the wrongs. And I think more information sessions. I'd love to sit with these professors you're talking about that are experts in constitutional law, that are experts on the Constitution, because I'm not. I am an expert, and I wouldn't say an expert. I'm a child or a man of cultural tribal law. I'm a man of lived experience in the way the system's treated me, and I've got an idea of what I know is just and what I see as a future for us. And I'd love to know, the legal ramifications around being recognised on the Constitution. I want to know what I'm giving up. I want to know what I get out of it. I want to know who's going to pay for the crimes of the past. I want to know who's going to take responsibility for that. There has to be consequences to all of these atrocities that happen. There has to be, someone has to take responsibility and actually pay. I wouldn't say pay, but actually acknowledge it and look at it. It's not all about money. It's about healing and finding a way forward as a nation to become one. We're not at the moment. It's very fractured, and it'll continue. And that's why the welcome to countries are so
hollow.
I guess not just hollow, but it's divisive at the moment, because people are looking at it and going, well, I was born here, I'm from here as well. How come I should be getting welcome to country? It's because there's a deep belonging into different tribes, the belonging to the area, and there's a cultural aspect to it, regardless of it might be looking like a modern westernized version of the welcome to country now. It's yelling out to the spirits of that country to welcome all these different people into that area for that moment in time. And it can be a really respectful, loving, embracing thing if you understand the deep meaning behind it. Some mob have turned it into a money-making scheme. Some mob have gone further into the arts and made it into, all about them or whatnot. But there is an actual connection to our old ancestral roots about listening to country about it. Like where I'm from, when I go out on country, I yell out and let the old people know I'm home. There's a cultural aspect to what it actually really is. And I feel we as a group and as a people of all different races, creeds and colour need to grab onto each other. And I'll send this hand out of love and respect, that even though all these bad things have happened to me personally, to my family, to my people, I'm still sitting here and I'll still stand and say I want to walk forward with you and I want to find a way with you. And it's going to be uncomfortable, it's going to be ugly, we're going to cry, we're going to scream, we're going to shout, but let's do this together and let's find a way forward. Let's not let the government, federal or state, dictate to us as a people how we want to have a society.
Absolutely.
And I think at the core of it, we all want what's best for us, for each other, and we all want what's best for ourselves.
Peace over war.
Brother, that's what we need to do. I mean, if I can sit here and shake your hand, my young brother,
yeah, absolutely,
and continue speaking my truth and continue finding a way forward, I think there's hope for us. And that's all we need. All we need is hope, a bit of hope.
Goodwill.
And we've got a good platform here in Foundation to actually start from.
Absolutely. Well, I take encouragement from the audience. They're hungry for information. I don't usually say to my audience the amount of views, but over the last few years we've reached like 70. We've got 70 million views online. People are clearly hungry for information from the grassroots, from what's going on, not from Canberra, not from the parliaments of this house, of this country. And I want people to be able to find your work. I want them to be able to find your son's story. Where can they find you?
Well, you can Google Zach Ceremony, www.zachs ceremony, CEREMONY, zachceremony.com. You can jump onto our website. You'll find the documentary you can download on there. We've also got, I've got a DVD. I don't know who's watching DVDs anymore, but I should have brought a copy for you. Actually, I'll send you some.
I'll check it out online.
I do a lot of work. My podcast series is up online now. It's called the Alec Dumaji Chronicles. You can jump on there and listen to some of the stuff that I talk about. I think the first series I did was called Phoenix Rising, which kind of told my early story. And because my background's in radio, I talk a lot about my upbringing and where I went and what I did. But I want to really get the Alec Dumaji Chronicles out there and eventually turn it into a bit of a podcast / web series to be able to film the people that I'm talking to.
Need a video content.
So
check it out. I mean, there's some great podcasts already there, guys. I've been listening. You've had Warren on. You had was it a white fella last week?
Yeah, Dallas Steele.
Talking about the voice. He was great as well. You've also interviewed one of your local Aboriginal elders. Who's talking about the jab.
Yep, I was talking to brother Andrew McLeod, who's from the Ewan mob down at Nowra. He's the head of the Dunwich dance group. His father, Uncle Bobby McLeod, was an amazing activist, Black Panther, singer, songwriter. Right. A lot of things he taught me as a young fellow when I first came to the city was to be humble, but also to use your cultural law and spirit and ceremony to be able to bridge the gaps between each other. And you'll find that once we break down all the things that we're different in, you'll find there's actually a platform where we've got a lot of things that are the same, and we kind of you got to find that middle ground to be able to work together. And look, I want to do more of these chats with you.
Yeah,
and I'm definitely keen and open to coming down to Sydney and
let me know next time you're down. I reckon there's a bunch of people that would love to have that chat, because often people that we disagree with in politics, politically on the right or the left, we find we can't get people on the left that don't agree. I'm not saying you're from the left, but we can't get people that disagree with us on the show this is something where, you know, you've said a lot of stuff about the treaty making process and the history of this nation and reparations and paying the rent, and I think that there's a huge opportunity for a discussion with someone on the opposing side. I'd love to sit down and chair it, so we can all stumble forward in search for the truth. But if you guys want to support what Alec's doing, have you got like a PayPal where people can pay regularly, or we should talk about setting something like that up.
Definitely be keen to set something like that up. Right, sure. I'm even, you know, my new documentary I want to make, which is The Drover's Son, about my personal story in finding my white man father, right? And who's actually he was Scottish, so I got Scottish blood in me.
Oh, right, there you go. Yeah, you ever wear the kilt, or?
Well, I want to go to Scotland and find what my tartan is, you know, find what my crest is, and all that sort of stuff. So there's, you know, I'm keen to learn more about myself as well. But look, definitely keen to get down your way, and we can set up some sort of stuff like that. Please subscribe to my podcast series, because I want to do more of those podcasts and turn it into a bit of a web series. That's the plan. And have followers like yourself on there and chat. So yeah, open to everything, brother. Because I've got to find a platform for myself, and be able to speak some of the truths from, you know, my learnt and lived experience. Right.
Have you got a GoFundMe as well? I just can't remember what it was for.
I had a GoFundMe that was for the documentary series, feature called The Drover's Son. That's what that was up there for, to try and get funds in to create that documentary, because it's a truth-telling story about slavery in this country, but also about coming of I guess a journey of me finding my white man roots. So.
Right. Well, guys, until he sets up his regular payment system, because I think every podcaster needs to have it so they can project into the future.
Yep.
Shoot him some bucks. A couple coffee a month. That's the policy.
I love my coffee in gelato. I like getting paid in gelato.
Indeed. So remember to share this podcast. Follow him on social media. He's a wealth of knowledge. And Alec, I just want to thank you again for coming and having a discussion in good faith and helping me giving me another perspective on what's going on in this country and the voice that we're not hearing in the mainstream media. So thank you for coming out. God bless you.
Maraganyi. Yo.